Recording in progress.
I think you may have to move one of the mics down so it doesn't eat the whole thing down.
Oh, yeah.
Just-
It's fine.
yeah.
You just sit right there. Yeah, it's good. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, back to the regularly scheduled program. The Conservation Commission meeting for May 1, 2025. We are opening. What?
We can't hear a word. If you could move
Well,
the
I'm
microphone
not-
a little closer.
These mics are
They're not
actually
on?
not for you, they're for the stenographer, by the way. So I'm saying, we're not in the original, we're not in our regular room.
Yeah, we
We
still
noticed.
can't,
We still can't hear you, that's why we're here.
we're here to hear you, yes. You have to speak up.
Okay, all right. Okay, better?
That's good.
Like
Yes,
that?
better. Thank
The
you.
voice of authority, yes, okay, I will try. I'm a soft-spoken person, truly, I'm not really loud, but, well, some people think, but anyway. So first we have to have roll call, so let's do roll call. Louis,
Present.
Mark LePage, present.
Jeff,
Michael Ryan?
Roger Trahan.
Nicole Sharamonte.
Richard Johnson.
Richard, you come in like really softly. Barely hear you.
Richard Johnson.
Yeah, you're still like really soft.
And this is with my audio cranked.
And his audio is cranked.
Preet Galai, could you say something and see if you're,
Yeah, I can hear Richard just fine.
Yeah, it's coming through the TV. The TV sucks. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
we don't have the speakers in the room.
There's just one speaker, that's why it's.
Oh, we have
so-
one speaker. That's it.
I think. I mean, I was hearing it come from this one.
Okay, it's really like low. Okay, well, just be loud, guys, like they told me. Okay, let's open up, without further ado, let's open up the first hearing, which is the NOI for 124, 126 Grove Street. Is there anyone here or online? Yes, thank you.
Can't hear a damn thing.
Ready when you are.
Oh, go.
Okay, sure, great. For the record, my name is Michael Hassett here from Guerrier and Halnon, representing the applicant. Also online, I believe, is Nicole Hayes from Goddard, should we need her. So the previous hearing, we went through all the comments, and I believe we had decided on the special conditions. And it was determined that we couldn't move to a vote at that time because of the late receipt of materials. And so I believe at this time, all issues are addressed. We met with the planning board on Monday, and they made a statement that they have no more changes either, and they're just waiting for a closing here. So it seems like everybody's ready, and they just need you guys to approve, and then once they do that, they'll feel comfortable approving on their end.
Okay. At this point, I think, Mark, would you want to read through
Yeah, I
the
could.
suggested special conditions?
I could read the special conditions.
So what we'd like to do is we'd like to go through the suggested special conditions, make sure it's all copacetic, no surprises, right?
Right.
If we're all okay, then I think we can pretty much move to close.
Okay.
However, I will have to ask for comment, open comment from the audience before we do that.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, we can do that. All right, so we've got standard special conditions 19, mitigation planning plan, 20, erosion control barriers, 21, extra silation barriers, 24, work performed according to plan, 26, provision of plans and order of conditions, 27, approve changes. 28, notification prior to work. 29, right to impose additional conditions. 30, errata as changes. 33, use of clean fill. 34, no straw bales. 35, stockpile maintenance. 37, remedy upon problem identification. 41, inspections and disposal of sediment. 44, removal of barriers. 45, dewatering plan. 46, stockpile location. 47, removal of sediment. And 51, building permit sign off. Then we've got some additional special conditions. Michael, this should mirror what you saw from beta, but let us know if you have
course.
anything you see an issue with.
Right, so these are distilled from the recommendations
Yeah.
that came out of.
It looked like you, based on your response, you'd agree to most of these, but.
Right.
Yeah, I
Cer-
think all the big ones we talked about at the last hearing too. so.
Exactly, so we can talk about it today if there's anything additional. So, 52, applicant shall provide to the Conservation Commission and Department a transection of existing vegetation of 3 inches or greater in diameter be approved prior to the commencement of work. 53, applicant shall provide to the Conservation Commission and Department of Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan to be approved prior to the commencement of work. Actually, I misnumbered these, so that was 53. So this will be 54. Applicant shall provide to the Conservation Commission and Department a dewatering plan for basins 2 and 3 to be approved prior to the commencement of work. 55, applicant shall provide to the Conservation Commission a water control plan for basin 2 to be approved prior to the commencement of work. 56, we need to discuss, we had some conversation about placard wordage for delineation of the buffer between the 25-foot no disturb within basin 2 and the limits of maintenance activities. Michael, I don't know if you have any thoughts or suggestions on that you guys had considered?
So I mean, the ones I've typically seen usually have something like Franklin Conservation Commission, and then you might put a no disturb buffer, a no disturb zone.
Okay.
Something like a 2 or 3 word statement that kind of encapsulates the intent.
Something small and simple. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna fit on top of like a 6 inch by 6 inch stone bound.
Okay.
All right, so the suggestion would be that applicant would provide to the Conservation Commission and Department placard wordage for delineation of buffer between 25-foot no disturb within the basin 2 and the limits of maintenance activities prior to the commencement of work, right? So it sounds like you've got a good idea, you can just shoot it over to us.
Right, and I can work with Bricolage or Beta to come up with the exact verbiage if that's all right with you.
Perfect,
Sure.
okay,
Perfect.
good.
Yep.
So we're on to 57. Applicant shall provide to the Conservation Commission and Department an invasive species management plan to be approved prior to the commencement of work. 58, applicant shall provide to the Conservation Commission and Department invasive, oh, I'm sorry, that was a dupe. My sheet duplicated. So then now we're on to 58. Applicant will conduct a site walk with the agent prior to construction to review the access path and make any minor adjustments as appropriate to save mature vegetation. The layout of the replication area should be finalized during the site walk, with the goal being to curve them in a way that better integrates them with the natural topography.
Yep.
Good? Okay.
Good.
So then we're on to 59. Applicant shall provide to the Conservation Commission and Department a final restoration plan, including information regarding access to the replication area, the layout of the replication area, proposed grading, revised limits of clearing and buffer zone restoration measures, along with any other required information for wetland replication coming out of the site walk required in Special Condition 58, and to be approved prior to the commencement of work.
That sounds like what we were talking about. Yep.
Okay, good. So 60, applicant shall provide to the Conservation Commission and Department a restoration plan for areas in the buffer zones that are disturbed for access to the wetland replication area to be approved prior to the commencement of work. 61, applicant shall provide to the Conservation Commission and Department the native seed mix to be applied to all disturbed areas and that to be approved prior to the commencement of work. And finally, 61, applicant shall provide to the Conservation Commission and Department a complete project narrative, including who is performing the work, description of all work occurring within conservation jurisdiction, and the proposed construction schedule, all to be approved prior to the commencement of work.
Yep.
All right,
All reasonable.
So,
excellent.
Are there any questions or comments from the other members? Richard, do you have anything? No?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Brika Lai, are you all right?
I'm fine. Just don't forget to take public comment.
Yes, I was about to do that, yes.
I do also need to read findings. Do you
Oh,
do you have the findings?
I do not have the findings.
All right, we'll go take public comments.
I do have one question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
So question about the replication area spurs.
Yes.
How wide are they? About 20 feet or so?
I think on the plan, they're probably shown between 10 to 15 feet wide at this
Okay.
point.
And is there anything special you'll need to do to ensure their success?
That, I think, would be better answered by Nicole if she's online.
Nicole? are you-
I'm not sure if she is, but Commissioner Ryan, there's actually under the Wetlands Protection Act, especially because this is BBW, there are regulations for what needs to happen for success of that replication area.
Mhm.
Understand, and just given its unique shape, I was wondering if they had any plans or,
I know the standard procedure is to dig down to groundwater or evidence of groundwater, models, and then maybe fill back up just a little bit. But the idea is to get down to that groundwater table to ensure that the wetlands stay wet. And so this would be kind of in a more linear fashion than the typical like rectangular or blocky shape. But that's something that, we'll be working with Goddard. Goddard will be working that out with Beta in the field during that site walk, is determining the exact way that should happen.
thanks, yeah, and definitely commend you on the just doing that is innovative to increase the buffer zone, so
Mhm.
it's appreciated.
So, while we're at that, so is there anyone in the audience or online that has any questions or comments about this project?
Hey, Bricolai,
Yep.
do we have the findings document in the drive?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
You don't see it in the folder for the?
It would be
permit?
a quick way to go back, Mark, is to look 2 meetings ago
Oh, okay.
in the agent report.
Oh,
So
yeah.
April 3rd, and that's where I included the screenshot of it.
That's what it was, okay. Oh, actually, I probably get that printed off too. I thought I had it printed off somewhere. So, February, or April 3rd?
Yep. I think it was for 7 Charles.
Oh, okay. Oh, there it is, okay.
Yeah, I see it.
All right, so following the review of the above referenced notice of intent and based on information provided in the application and presented at the public hearing, the commission finds that the areas in which work is proposed is significant to the following interests of the Wetlands Protection Act. Public water supply, groundwater supply, storm damage prevention, prevention of pollution, protection of wildlife habitat, flood control. All right, there we go.
Okay. Okay, I think that's, unless we have any further questions? No? Yeah? I mean, you want to take a motion to approve with the conditions
Conditions.
and special conditions as stated?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I'll give you a motion to approve the NOI on 124, 126 Grove Street with the conditions as stated.
Second.
Second? Okay. Louis?
Vote to approve, with conditions as stated.
Vote to approve.
Approve?
Approve?
Approve.
Approve?
Richard?
Approve.
Approved. Yay.
Thank you very much.
In the can, as I say.
All right.
Great. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for working with us, guys. Okay, good job. Good job, good job. Good job. Okay. All right. Next up, we have the NOI for 1 Paddock Lane.
Good evening, folks. Good to see you all again. Chris Frateroli, wetland scientist with Goddard Consulting, here on behalf of the applicant and the B Eunice for this notice of intent for 1 Paddock Lane. Since the last time that we have spoken, we had gone through and made some revisions based on Beta's comment letter. And then actually since the deadline for this hearing, we got another letter from Beta that seemed to mostly wrap things up, recommended a few special conditions, and deferred to the commission on a few things. So as far as peer review goes, I think we are mostly buttoned up there. We can still discuss and kind of finalize some of those conditions and whatnot. So we've made changes to address some of those recommendations, a handful of plan administrative things. We've increased the amount of planting that we're proposing around the proposed building. We've added some crushed stone as a sort of stormwater management swale between the proposed driveway and the retaining wall and eventually the wetland. We've also added crushed stone under the deck to make sure that that is as pervious as possible. I know that since I believe at the last time we spoke, there were some questions about how do the house sizes compare. So I wanted to kind of put some numbers to that while we're here. The proposed house is just over 2,000 square feet. 1,300 of that is the house itself, the remainder being the garage. And that garage is really the main difference between the proposed house and the existing house on the other side of the lot. The existing house is about 1,325 square feet, so the houses themselves very comparable. The existing house has a slightly larger deck than what we're proposing here, but really it's that garage that makes up the difference in the overall square footage of the building here. We also put some more clear numbers to the buffer zone impervious. So as the bylaw regulates, we are looking at impervious in that 50 to 100 foot buffer zone. We're at about a 35% cover, so a bit over the threshold that the bylaw sets forth. And I do just want to reiterate, we're providing stormwater management to infiltrate roof runoff, as well as mitigate runoff along the surface from the driveway. So those were a couple of items that we've included to sort of mitigate for that impervious surface here.
So can you say that again, Chris? I'm sorry.
So
The mitigation.
Kind of when you say, I have a question that goes along with that, with yours. So I understand what you're saying with mitigation. You can explain it to Mark. But when you say the difference between 30 and 35% coverage, right?
Correct.
Right. Just that 5%. What does that actually translate to in terms of, metric feet?
In terms of
Square
infiltration ability?
Yeah.
Or,
Well, I just want that 5%. What does that actually mean? Though 5% of, 5% could be 0, could be 1, whatever.
We are at on the site. We have just over 3,400 square feet in that 0 to 50 buffer zone.
Okay.
And our proposed impervious is about 1,175 of that 3,400 and change.
Okay. All right.
1175 square footage of impervious. Okay.
Correct. Right. In the 50 to 100.
Okay. So the delta is what? Couple hundred?
150 square feet, something like that.
That's what I mean. Like the delta is like 100 or something like that.
Yes, it's
not like 1,000.
It's not
10,000
some tremendous
feet.
number.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
It's less than 200 square feet.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. That's a point.
Good
And
point, yeah.
to be clear, we have impervious closer than just the 50 to 100 as well.
True.
So just want to be clear on that.
True.
But we are proposing stormwater management to address runoff from all of the impervious that we're proposing here.
True.
So subsurface infiltration unit to infiltrate a 1-inch rain event over the whole roof surface with calculations provided, as well as some sort of low impact stormwater swale between the driveway and the wetland.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Beyond, that pretty much wraps up the site plan changes. I did also include, we had looked through a handful of alternatives at the previous time that we had talked.
Right.
I left off the first one for the sake of space because that proposed, 2,500 square feet of wetland fill. We
Yeah.
did not even really discuss that.
Okay, yeah.
Again, just to walk through really quickly, alternative 2 has about 260 square feet of wetland fill, associated replication at 2:1. Alternative 3 is essentially what we're talking about right now. No wetland fill, about 2,200 square feet of impact in the 0 to 25, about 4,300 in the 25 to 50, and about 4,200 in the 50 to 100. So these numbers are, just impact rather than the impervious that we talked about a moment ago.
Right.
So total with this iteration of the site plan, we're a little shy of 11,000 square feet of work in the buffer zone. About 10,700 if we want to put
You're
it.
calling that 3?
Sorry?
Sorry, I can't see, you're calling that?
Yes, number 3.
Number
This
3,
is what we're
3.
working with today.
Okay, got it.
Is about 10,700 square feet
Got it.
of work in the buffer zone. Obviously, not all of which is impervious.
Right.
We did also work to expand the plantings that we're providing a little bit. We're now over 2,000 square feet of plantings, essentially ringing the entire house. We're really proposing very little lawn here on the wetland side. It's really just enough to be able to walk around the house, and only slightly more than that in the front, on the neighborhood of 25 or 30 feet from the house to vegetation on the opposite side of that lawn. We also have a front walkway, subsurface infiltration in that area, so really not a place you want to plant too densely anyway. We are continuing to try and ameliorate some of your concerns here. So I'm happy to answer any questions that there might be about this iteration of the site plan. If there's specific feedback, we would be happy to hear it.
Does anybody have, go.
At the last time we spoke, I had asked you how many square feet of the house is within the 0 to 25 feet.
Right, I think I may have forgotten, I pulled so many numbers for this, I think I may have forgotten that number specifically.
And the other question I have was how many was 25 to 50? Because I believe it's close to a third of that 1,300 square feet that you have the house itself on.
Sorry, say that again for me?
I believe if you combine those two totals, the house itself is about 1,300 square feet, you said.
Correct.
I think it's gonna be close to a third of that.
Probably something in that, yes, probably something in that neighborhood, yes.
I'd still like those numbers. And Michael, I believe you had said that they can't put a foundation or a slab in the 25 to 50 with the local bylaw.
The local bylaws, no, yes,
No
right,
build.
no build up to
Right,
0 to
so,
50.
yeah, that's kind of been the crux of this conversation, is we've requested relief from those regulations, and we're trying to find a way to make it work, by meeting in the middle to compromise between being able to put a house here and still maintaining some of those functions and values of the buffer zone.
Okay.
I have a question. Have you provided these new plans to us? I mean, I really can't see that far.
I know, I'm sorry,
It's-
I was,
And I was looking in our drive to see if we had any.
I was told to not count on being able to use a projector tonight. Yes, this is the plan submission right up here. So maybe if we,
Can you show me where the buffer zones are? I
yes,
can't really.
absolutely. Tyler, do you want to zoom in on that? Maybe I can walk up here and do it a little bit more clearly.
The green lines are the buffer zones.
So we have 25, this comes and does this little finger arc here.
Well, it goes also back into the house and the
Yeah,
garage,
yeah.
right?
Right, yes, yes.
Okay.
All around like this, 50 similarly, a bit further out, and the 100-foot essentially comes out pretty much into the street and to the neighboring property.
So how has this changed from the original? Because I'm looking at what you originally had provided to us, and it looks the same.
So the footprints have not shifted. We've provided some additional stormwater management We have beefed up our planting scheme. We've provided comments, or responses to some of Beta's comments, and that was the gist of this submission.
I think that the challenge we ran into is moving this gets sideways with zoning laws, right? So that's kind of the decision we're faced with is, you know, we comfortable with that because it can't be moved.
Am I allowed to go there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, can I confirm that the deck, this part of the house, all of this is in the 0 to 25,
Correct.
and then the 50 is,
Yeah,
basically the whole house is,
yeah,
Correct.
yes.
okay,
That was the issue we had last time.
yeah,
That was why was this even an appropriate place for it?
yeah,
Because in the past, the decision had been made not to build for this exact reason,
right,
right? Because you're basically in the wetlands,
right.
because there's no quote dry spot, you know, and that,
And-
so they're trying to drop a house in a place where prior owners had said no, I wasn't gonna do it.
Correct,
It wouldn't even go through with the NOI process.
yeah, okay, thank you.
So I think in my the last meeting, I kind of raised the question, if we had like an alternatives analysis as far as, you know, seeing that
Well, that's
Yeah.
that's what he had.
you have a garage, but I think it was like the footprint, you know, the garage, you know, sometimes you have the garages on the first level and,
Oh, yeah.
you know, having the building on the top. You see a lot of that in Franklin.
Garage underneath, right?
You know,
Yeah.
you could have shrank this footprint down quite a bit and maybe, you know, have less disturbed areas within that.
Right, so,
Just
yeah, we have talked about that as a project team here. The engineers are concerned about putting that garage below grade for groundwater considerations.
Well, it would be at the level of, you know, it wouldn't be like below.
Oh,
grade.
so you're saying go up with the house rather than.
Yeah, and then you have your. you know,
Rather than
first-
down with the
you have like a
garage.
second story at the top, and, you know, you see some of that architecture here
But that-
locally, so, but that would have, you know, significantly changed, you know, having a lot of disturbed area in this, you know, cause basically just adding a garage, and then the structure, and then the deck, so, and it's larger than the existing property aside from it, so I think.
And even if the garage were to go under, the whole
Yeah.
structure's still in the 0 to 50.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
I mean, you just kind of just shrinking the footprint down
Yeah.
by just basically having an additional story, basically. You're changing it vertically, not horizontally, so.
Right.
Really, that was kind of, was looking to see something different today, so.
Right. We hear you on that front. I think this is something we'll probably have to consider carefully, and I think I understand the commission's position on this, and I'll work with the team to see what we can do on this front.
I'm not sure if a former owner came in front of Concom for trying to do something in the same or related area, but if there are records about that, I would go back and look at them.
Sure.
Because my guess is that this isn't the first time, if there was an intention to do this, and also if the property was originally purchased with the idea they were going to break it up and sell it off in parcels, which of course is what many people do, you can see that they probably ran into that same thing previously. And
Right.
we make note that no structure is there right now. So I'm just saying, so it would, if that is true, I would go back and review that narrative and those interactions with the Concom, because it'd be interesting to see what was said.
Sure thing. I'll see if Bricolai can provide me with some
Okay.
old documents there.
Okay, that's what I would do.
So, in general, this is what we have in front of you tonight. I think I hear the commission pretty clearly at this point. So, we may have to have some tough conversations here, but
I don't think anyone's really changed since.
understood.
Honestly, no surprises. I mean, it's not positions really haven't changed. Yeah.
Fair enough. Understood. We were hoping to kind of provide a little bit more and maybe meet in the middle a little bit more,
You guys are trying to
but
do what you can and be.
understood.
I understand.
No, absolutely.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, let me say, just, I have to ask, are there any people in the audience or online that have any questions or comments about this project? Okay,
This is,
Yes.
this,
go ahead.
this is, sorry.
Go ahead, John.
John, go.
This is John Detterman from 86 Palomino. I just have a couple questions. The question regarding the relevance of the size of the existing home at One Paddock Lane. That home is not sitting in a buffer zone or in the wetlands, so I'm not sure what the relevance of raising the size of that house is. Secondly, in reviewing the minutes from one of the prior meetings, there was notice, or it was called out that the local law varies from the state law. And I guess I don't understand the relevance of that either, because if it's our local law, that's what we're following, right?
Well, keep in mind, so John, keep in mind that each town has the ability to take the existing state laws and to add to that body additional regulations, as long as and only as long as they are more restrictive, not less restrictive, than the existing state laws. So you will see that many towns have used the DEP legislation as a guideline and have decided that in certain circumstances there's special things that they want to preserve or special things they want to do on top of what the state does. And so that then becomes a body of so-called bylaws that the town Conservation Commission, that is us, must adhere to. That is part of the local law. So when we look at projects, we are looking at with basically two sets of eyes. One is the DEP regulations, but also those additional legislation that the town imposes. And that's how it works.
Which is exactly my point, that we know that our bylaws are more restrictive than the state.
They have to be.
So,
yeah, they have to be. Yeah.
Right. So calling out that the state law is less stringent is irrelevant in the conversation.
If it's something to which a more stringent bylaw applies, correct?
Yep. And then my last comment is a question. In reviewing the minutes as well, there was discussion about the applicant being aware that for their option 4, they would need to go before the zoning board, and they felt confident that would not be successful. So my question is, if the zoning board is hard and fast, what makes an applicant think that the Conservation Commission is going to view the local laws differently?
So John, I think we were talking about was one of the alternative analysis presented, right, which we all rejected based on the fact that it wasn't going to go through Concom or ZBA, right?
Either one.
Yeah, either one, but, you know, going to, some of the requirements we put on applicants, we require alternative analysis. Doesn't mean, especially with a property this size and this tight, that they're necessarily going to be, I would say, quote unquote, realistic, but we want to make sure we've examined all options and turned over all stones. And, that's why Chris had 3 or 4 of those on the screen. The one that wouldn't have gone past ZBA wouldn't have gone past us either, right? It was, but we had to go through the exercise, if that makes sense.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yep,
And
good
John,
clarification, thank you.
if I may just add one thing to my expose. Again, because we're talking about local bylaws, right? So obviously, you really can't negotiate with the state but you can negotiate with the town. So one of the things that we try to do in certain circumstances is, if there's a way, for example, in this property, right, there's no way you could possibly not build inside one of the protected bands. There's just no way, right? So one of the things that, if it's something that looks like it might be somewhat feasible, if there's some sort of additional consideration, conservation consideration, then that becomes a discussion, that becomes essentially a deal-making, where we might ask for things like, you know, put some additional property aside, make some wetlands and some non-existing wetlands. And that would be what we would call a mitigation. That kind of thing. Stormwater management, for example. Can you provide us with additional stormwater management to prevent a lot of the runoff from going into the Charles, which is a really, really big deal right now in the 4 towns that are considered the headwaters of the Charles. We are one of them, okay? So the state is really on us right now to control phosphate into our water supply, and has been for several years. So for example, so those are the kinds of things that a applicant or builder can try to negotiate with the town, because if we're talking about town bylaws, that won't be true for the DEP regulations for the Wetland Protection Act, but that will be true for the local bylaws. So you do have a little bit of wiggle room there. The question is, how much? How far do you go? And that's what this body then ends up discussing. Just to give you a full picture of how it works.
And I appreciate that very much. So I would say that based on what I've seen in coastal areas, there can be creativity with the house. You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
As was suggested earlier this evening. So I would think that the applicant would be keen to come back with some clever suggestions on how to mitigate things.
Or you have the architect try to negotiate with the applicant that they would actually consider these novel suggestions, which is usually a lot more difficult than it appears. So remember, we're talking to the people who are the architects, the actual designers, right? It's really their relationship with the applicant and negotiating with the applicant, trying to convince the applicant that, you know, it actually would be in your best interest to do something like this because you might be able to get it through conservation easier. But that's like, you know, that's all that happens behind the scenes, behind us. You know, we're not a part of that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, John.
Thank
Good
you.
questions.
Yes. Is there anyone else?
Yes, hi, Bernard Aguilar, 38 Palomino Drive. So I kind of would like to piggyback on what John said, and some of the Conservation Commission agents said that basically the whole project sits in 100-foot buffer zone. The whole project. There's nothing beyond that, right? Everything sits within the 100-foot buffer zone. Big part of it within the 25-foot buffer zone and the 50-foot buffer zone. I believe that this lot was originally one lot because of the wetlands. They knew they had wetlands on the property. They put the house that's existing structure there, and it's a single family home, one lot. I don't think that this was intended to be 2 lots. And I really, it kind of upsets me that there is, we are trying to see if house would fit there somewhere.
But Renata, I'm just saying, from the standpoint of us, this body, right? We can't assume anything about what the original intentions were, you know, on the purchase or the house or anything. I mean, we can only look at the project in front of us, and that's all we can look at. We don't know anything about, you know, we don't know anything about the personal history of, you know, the intentions. We just look at, you know, does this meet the standards? Does this not meet the standards? If it doesn't meet the standards, how? Right?
Right. Okay. So if you look at the standard, right, then the whole project sits within the 100-foot buffer zone. So it should be the standards. As John pointed out, and you guys pointed out, our standards as a town are more strict, and we should follow those. And I really think that this project should not be really happening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I think we'll probably take a motion to continue then, right?
Yep. I will give you a motion to continue the NOI for 1 Paddock Lane to May 15th at 7:01.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Lee,
Vote to continue.
Vote to continue.
continue.
Continue?
Continue.
Continue?
Richard?
Continue.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Can we take a 2-minute bathroom break?
Yeah.
2-minute break.
Recording in progress.
So we had a motion, we had a second, and we had a vote. We had a vote to continue, so we are continuing. Okay, continued. Thank you very much. All right, so the next up, meeting up is the ANRAD for 47 Partridge Street. Is there anyone here from 47 Partridge Street?
It is me again, and I think Rick is online as well.
Hey, Rick.
All right. Double
Hey,
billing.
good evening.
Double billing. Okay, good.
Just wanted to start off with this project. Is located at 47 Partridge Street. We had made a presentation to the commission previously. We've had an opportunity to go through the beta peer review, respond to those comments with a revised plan and documents, and we now have follow-up comments from beta. The project consists of basically a request to delineate and approve, to approve the 3 delineated wetland resource areas on the site. Beta had done a peer review of the bordering vegetated wetlands. Seems to be, from their letter, agreeable to the delineation of the BVW. The second item that we had requested confirmation of the wetland boundary was bordering land and subject to flooding. This property is located in an area where the FEMA mapping has indicated a base flood elevation of elevation 169. We have field located that elevation and have shown that on the ANRAD plans that we've provided. Beta has provided the commission with a suggestion, if they were so inclined, to include in a decision on this project. And that, I'm sure, I would hope that the commission members had an opportunity to read. I'd be happy to have Beta provide some input on that if the commission was so inclined. But basically, to summarize that, there's the suggestion that if in fact the base flood elevation was to change in the future, that this approval of the current bordering land subject to flooding may need to be amended or would need to be amended. And the applicant would be amenable to that as a condition.
Great.
And then lastly, the project does have a riverfront area associated with it. And Chris from Goddard Consultant can talk with the commission about the delineation of that riverfront area and some additional information. Thank you.
Is this Shepherd's Brook?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm happy to kind of walk through the riverfront issue here. We did delineate, I delineated this site, the bordering vegetated wetland, and Rick has been handling the process with you guys, but I've been working with him in the background a little bit. We do have a perennial stream, obviously shown over here at plan left. It kind of arcs around. You can probably see it a little bit better up there. So the issue with this, with delineating the high water mark of this stream, is that it is so far internal to a flooded wetland that you simply cannot get to it. I've tried to on a couple of occasions, and you can get close in a couple of spots, but between the flooding and deep muck, you physically cannot get to it.
If you ever get out, basically.
If you ever get out.
Yeah.
So maybe the answer here is I need to go for a swim, but we have adjusted the way that riverfront is shown on this plan. What Rick has done is essentially draw it in from aerial, because you can see the channel very clearly on aerial. Unfortunately, that doesn't come through on site plan view. But you can see the channel very clearly on aerial.
Okay.
And I think that in this instance, this is an appropriate way to address this. One of those things that kind of goes along in support of this is a program called StreamStats, which you may be familiar with. You might see it as people try to show that a river is or isn't perennial. Basically, it accumulates a whole bunch of data, watershed size, cover types in the watershed, and runs a whole slew of very technical equations that are above my head, but it allows you to generate some predicted statistics for that river. Now, for the sake of this conversation, I did run StreamStats at 2 different points on this river here, and one of the statistics that it can give you is bankful width, the distance from one bank of the river to the other.
Okay.
And to be sure, it's an approximation, but this program was actually developed in Massachusetts, and it applies very well in Massachusetts, as it turns out. So as Rick has measured it on the plans from one bank of the river to the other, up here towards the culvert, we are flowing south to north. You have about 30.5 feet. We do get a little impounded up there with the beaver dam and an undersized culvert, so that's probably a little wider than average. As we go down, we get about 20.5 feet, 22.5 feet. So right in that neighborhood as we move along the stream channel here. And these are, just to be clear, these are measurements based on the plan. If you run StreamStats at these locations, you get a bankful width, and I apologize, you probably can't read this from there, but you get a bankful width right up at the culvert of 23.4, okay, which seems to corroborate the width of the stream that we're showing on the plan here. You move down a little, you get a bankful width of 22.1, which seems to corroborate the width of the stream that we're showing along this reach. I would also note that a very similar conversation was had in a recent adjudicatory hearing as of about 2 years ago, where the decision came down to DEP holding that StreamStats is an appropriate method to corroborate field observations of bankful width in this way. Again, I can't quite get to every point of the bank of this river, but I've gotten close in a couple places. There is a pretty clear bank undercut that aligns pretty much perfectly with the vegetation and therefore the stream channel that you can see on aerial. So this is our request to the commission. We think this is an appropriate way to sort of quote unquote delineate the river here and cast a riverfront from that line. The other alternative might be me going for a swim.
So in order to get to the mean annual high water mark, you need to get in the muck there.
Yeah,
that's kinda
you're risking going over your head, or
Oh,
you know, it's a boat
Got it.
event or something like that.
It really does.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Even
this-
from a safety standpoint, come on.
Yeah, this makes sense.
I mean,
So we have done this in other cases, similar places where you can't really get to the river. And we have found that it's, you know, a relatively reasonable and appropriate way to go about this.
Okay.
So you guys are agreeable to the potential downstream change of the bordering land subject to flood, right?
Yeah, I think so. Rick can speak a little more directly to this if he wants to, but, you know, my thought is these numbers, sure, they can be subject to change by FEMA. At the very least, we still have like the building code to contend with
Right.
at that point, and that would not rely on any confirmed BLSF. So I think we'd be amenable to something like confirming the BLSF up to the base flood elevation, or confirming it at this elevation, subject, you know, assuming that it maintains as such.
Okay. So we're in agreement on that. Anybody have any concerns with the Shepherd's Brook? I mean, that makes sense to me, right?
I think so. I agree.
Yeah.
So up on the top there, you have 30, was it 30?
Yeah, right here, we've got about 30.5 from bank to bank.
And then as you go south, you're.
Yep. Yeah, so
Well, it decreases and then it.
you got about 20.5, 22.5. So this is kind of like a meandering brook. It's not perfectly consistent. It doesn't have nice, deep, defined banks. But generally, throughout the reach, in what's relevant to this site, it is right around that 20 to 23 foot mark, which is corroborated by stream stats. I think we get a little bit wider up here because I think this is an undersized culvert and there are definitely beavers damming this up. So some water gets impounded right before it goes under the road, so it's a little wider up here, but generally we're right around that 22, 21 foot bankful width mark.
And this is from stream stats, like this is what you pulled from the.
Yeah, so these are a couple of screenshots straight off of the stream stats program. I would invite you to go run it yourself. It's a little confusing, but it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I ran these earlier today at, you know, a couple of points along the stream here.
The only other thing in Beta's letter, I don't know if you caught it, looked like there was a few things in the cover letter that we were looking for.
There's a few things that were missing,
Application type, applicant's name, representative's name.
like just administrative stuff.
Yeah, I'll defer to Rick on that since he prepared those.
Okay.
Rick, you know about this?
That was in Beta's letter to you guys. Rick, you're muted, by the way.
Can you hear me now?
Now we
Yeah,
can,
now
yep,
you're good,
yep.
you're live.
So, sorry about that. Yes, we are aware of it. So the cover letter they've stated is missing the information required in section 7.3 of the bylaw, including application type, application's name and representative's name. Those are all included on the cover of the ANORAD form. We provided the commission with a cover letter that provided all that information. So we didn't see the need to duplicate that in the cover letter per se. So,
Okay.
you know, that's up to the
Understood.
commission.
Okay.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you for clarifying.
I think that's it. That's all.
Thank you.
The off-property flags were confirmed. John took care of that, so
Yeah.
that's all done.
So now I have a question. So now, technically, right? Okay, I'll say it out loud so people know what I'm talking about. So technically, we've been adhering to a 1 week rule, right? And the beta review itself came in after that. So technically, we haven't actually seen it yet. But the question is this. I've read it through it. You clearly have read through it.
Yeah, here's,
Have the other commissioners had a chance to read through the beta review? Yes or no? Yes.
yeah, I read
Yes. Richard? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so basically, it doesn't make sense to hold things up just because it came in
The
this
the only other
particular
question
case.
I'd ask is, you guys haven't had a chance to formally respond to that, but you don't have to, right? I mean, we've kind of cleared up.
Well, I mean, you've told us what the responses
Right,
are.
yeah. So, I'm just giving you a chance
I
here.
mean,
That's,
you know.
I don't think we feel a burning desire to submit something in writing if we are all kind of in agreement at this point.
Well, we-
at least
yeah.
in the public hearing setting.
Right. So, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, yeah, we just wanna,
But we would need time to do the,
conditions.
conditions. Yeah, we need time to put the
Well-
conditions
So
together.
this is an ANRAD.
This is an ANRAD.
Oh, so sorry,
Sorry.
right,
So-
God,
so-
yeah,
So we're
sorry.
good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we could approve tonight.
So now, there's
No.
one, I have one comment. So this is I have a comment that's here, off-property place, so I need to confirm those are
John
confirmed.
confirmed that
Hey,
was.
okay, yep, okay, got it,
that's,
okay, yep. Right, so we're done.
Rika
We've got
Lai,
it
did you have a,
Chair Livingstone.
Yes,
Vice Chair LePage. So this is an ANRAD.
yep,
So there, you don't have findings.
right,
prepared.
right,
Right.
no, I got it, yeah,
To
I know,
approve.
I know.
yeah,
So you could close and approve them at the next one, but you can't. I would not recommend approving tonight
Okay,
Why not?
because we don't have findings prepared.
right, that's what we were just saying,
that's exactly right, yeah, we weren't prepared to close,
yeah.
approve, we weren't prepared to approve. Right, because we don't have the findings, that's true.
I mean, the good thing is we agreed on them, so we could close next time. We'll put these together, formalize them, and read them into the record, and then we'll be set.
Okay.
Yeah, let's
I
just,
mean, the good thing is we're in agreement.
yeah, I mean,
so-
we're very, I mean,
For
we're
sure,
right there,
yeah.
we're right there at
Yeah.
the line.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
That's all right with me. I mean, Rick is formally the representative, so I would defer to him.
Rick, give us time to put the findings together, so we.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to the commission if you feel comfortable closing and then putting the findings together and voting, that we could do it that way, if that's what is being suggested, as I understand it.
Is that all right?
No, I think we want to have the findings and read them into the record. I know I was saying, I did say I thought we could close, but the right thing to do procedurally is to make sure we have the findings, read them into the record, and close with them as part of the closure. So sorry.
True.
That's
I think that's a better precedent.
Just
also.
procedurally, that's
Yeah.
really the way it needs to be done, so my bad.
I agree, yep. Okay, so we'll just vote to continue that.
Okay.
Okay, before we do it, is there anyone online or in the audience have any questions or comments about this project? Okay,
I'll give you a motion to continue the ANRAD 47 Partridge Street to May 15th at 7:02.
Second.
okay, Louis,
Vote to continue?
Vote to continue.
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 Richard,
Vote to continue.
continue. Thank you, guys. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Great. Before we skip. Okay, now let's go on to the next hearing, which is the NOI for 151 Grove Street. Do we have anyone here? Here you go.
How about Panther Way?
That's a hold till
It's a
June-
placeholder.
June 12th, yeah.
Placeholder.
True.
They asked not to do that until June 12th, yeah.
Go.
All right.
Hey, Michael.
For the record, Michael Hassett here, representing the applicant from Gary and Halnon. So at the last hearing, we were waiting for beta comments. We've received those. And I believe we've responded and gotten the response from those as well. So my understanding of the beta letter is that, you know, most of the issues have been resolved. There's a couple deferrals on special conditions that they recommended to the commission. And so I can go through those issues in the comment letter and kind of just discuss them piece by
Okay.
piece.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, the first one, I believe, is on W2 is the comment in the letter, if you want to follow along. That's recommending a special condition that a NIPD's SWIP be prepared prior to start of construction. We don't object to that special condition. And then, I don't know if the commission wanted to discuss that, or I think that's a pretty standard one.
Yep.
Okay. The next one is W5, that is requesting information on who would be performing the work and when the proposed activity would be done. We're requesting to defer that to prior to construction until we have a contractor on board to give you that information. So
Right.
as soon as we have it, we'll give it to you. That would be prior to construction as a special condition.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, so, yeah.
So,
okay.
yeah, just
we'll just
prior to starting
prior to
construction. Okay, yeah.
commencement
Yeah,
of
yeah,
work.
yep, yep.
There was another one in here related to seed mix. The applicant, the species list of the proposed seed mix that will be used in the jurisdictional area should be included on the plans. This could be considered a condition of approval. I believe we did specify a seed mix in the response letter. It's a New England conservation seed mix.
Okay.
For all areas that would not be lawns, that would be areas like slopes of the detention basin,
So-
and other areas that would be allowed to return to a more natural state after construction.
I think you're just looking for the species that would be. included.
Right, they're just looking to have like the individual species of that seed mix listed on the plan, and that could be something that we could provide similarly prior to start of construction.
Perfect.
Okay.
And then there was a question about stormwater infrastructure in the 25 to 50, that's comment W7. Essentially, on the plans, we have some stormwater outfalls from our retention systems that are highlighted in orange on this plan here, but it's essentially pipes with a flared end section at the end that are protruding into the 25 to 50 foot node structure. And the question raised by Beta is, does the commission consider these to be structures? I went through the conservation bylaws, and the definition of a structure in the 25 to 50 foot buffer zone area is concrete, stone, or other impervious foundations or slabs for construction purposes that for all intents and purposes would significantly increase runoff. Alteration in the 25 to 50 foot buffer zone resource area is limited to grading, tree clearing, stormwater management system components, lawns, gardens, and other low impact uses as determined by the commission. And then further down in that same section, it mentions stormwater management systems for individual components, including drainage piping and construction of detention or retention ponds shall be allowed by the commission based on an alternative analysis and review of design and space limitations as indicated in the final approved plans. I think the question is not whether or not these are considered structures, but more on if you feel that this drainage infrastructure is an acceptable use inside the 25 to 50. And so this outlet here is just clipping in. It's maybe no more than 5 feet into the no build. These other ones, this one in the middle, I would say probably extends no more than 10 feet into the no build, and this one over here is the closest. That one extends to probably within 5 to 10 feet of the no disturb. All of the outlets are protected by riprap aprons to spread out the stormwater flow and diffuse it so that it's not creating erosive velocities. That was all reviewed by Beta in their stormwater review with the planning board. And this one in particular, the one that extends the furthest, is in that location due to grading considerations. So we could pull it back, but in order to do that, we would have to do it grading to essentially cut a trench in for the stormwater to flow.
Yeah, so what's the point? Yeah.
It didn't seem like it was a meaningful alternative.
Right.
And you know, we don't think these are going to be contributing high stormwater flows. This is all meeting the pre and post policies to those wetlands. That was the analysis point. So we're not increasing volumes or peak flow rates for any of the design storms to those wetlands. And, you know, accordingly, we feel that those are appropriately placed, but it's up to you guys.
Comments?
I just had a question. The outflow pipes, so it's just gonna be the riprap that the water's gonna be flowing into, so what's gonna be taking up nutrients? And I understand it can get from the stormwater.
So, one of the things that the stormwater system does is remove total suspended solids and phosphorus through stormwater recharge. So we have subsurface chambers, 2 systems of those, and then an above ground infiltration basin. That would be removing the required 80% TSS, and then also the local bylaw of 90% TSS and 60% phosphorus. That's required through the MS4 permit. That's being met as we are retaining 1 inch times all the impervious area on the site and recharging it on site. So, you know, we're meeting our pollutant, our nutrient discharge standards, and that's something that Beta had reviewed during their peer review.
Thank you.
Other questions? No?
So these are in the, just to be clear, they're all of them are in the 25 to 50?
Yes, no, yeah, nothing in the 0 to 25.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Right.
So I mean, you know, I'm reading it the way he is.
It's very minimal.
It's minimal. I think based on the type of structure, I think we're okay. I'm not even sure we
I
need a
agree.
variance on that.
Agree.
But we could to be.
I mean, they're not building like a big cement block or
Right.
something.
Would you be agreeable to add any sedges at those outflow areas?
You're speaking about putting with some grasses at the
Yeah.
end of the riprap.
Yeah,
I think that would be fine.
thank you.
And that's additional like erosion
Yeah.
prevention.
That's the idea.
Good idea, Roger.
Might I pipe in real quick?
Please.
I think also what Commissioner Trahan was referencing is phytoremediation. So you'd specifically want sedges, not grasses.
Okay, sedges.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So if we can get some sedges out of it.
Do we have any like guidance on, you know, how much or what the extent of that would be? Is that something I should work with Bricolai on?
Break out Lywood, but no.
Or John from Beta.
Okay.
John, yes, or John.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Bricolai, just,
Mark-
go ahead. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I was gonna say,
I was gonna say, you go. I'll be quiet.
just procedurally, does that sound like, I'm just reading this, does that sound like that would need a variance request for that?
Within the
25 to
25 to 50,
Right. I'm thinking.
I wouldn't consider it if it's just stormwater infrastructure versus like a sub slab.
Right.
Yeah.
So no.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
that's what I was.
But while I have you, Vice Chair LePage, I would take note for the sedges to be conditioned. So
Yeah.
that would be
Okay,
something
yeah, okay,
that would
that's
be
fair.
Yep.
worked
That's fair.
on.
That's fair.
And Bricolai, just for increase my comfort level too, do you have any idea, just a ballpark on what kind of extents we'd be looking at?
Probably just along the base of the riprap, little toe slope there.
So maybe like, you know, like a 5-foot section of it or something?
Yeah,
Okay.
if that. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't gonna be like a ballpark or something, you know?
Yeah.
Oh,
that-
no.
It's
No.
relatively small.
Good,
And I
great.
can almost guarantee it's probably going to be John from Beta if you're looking to put a shovel in the ground this summer.
Yeah.
Understood, thank you.
It's gonna be, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And I believe that was all of the issues that Beta had raised in their latest letter. Let me just go to their summary here.
Just looking to.
Everything.
Yeah,
that
I think
marked
that's
up.
it.
Everything I marked.
So are you, Michael, you guys gonna send a response to this then
We can, yeah.
And just-
Do one final response then.
Right.
I noticed on the agenda, that Bricolai had, prepared that, you know, this was received, you know, the day after the 7-day deadline, so it's.
Well, that's
the
why I'm
typical-
asking.
Typical waiting period, and plus you guys don't have the conditions
Well,
ready yet
that's
anyway,
why also
so.
I'm asking
Right.
everybody if everybody had a chance to look at it.
Yeah,
Because
But-
the point is that, the
Mm.
point is to give people a chance to look.
Right.
no, absolutely,
Right,
yeah.
that's the objective.
So yeah, if you guys send the response you know, sounds like we're in agreement on this, we can put together conditions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can provide a formal response to this, yeah. And then we'll be meeting with the planning board on the 12th. So we'll be getting a feel for where they're at, the
Okay.
same week that we're meeting with you for
Good.
2 weeks out, so.
That's perfect.
Okay. Great. All right.
Okay.
Anything?
No.
from Audience or?
Yeah, is there anybody in the audience online or in the room has any questions or comments about the project? There being none, I'll take a motion to continue.
All right, give you a motion to continue the NOI for 151 Grove Street to May 15th at 7:03.
Second.
Vote to continue.
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 Richard,
Continue.
continue.
Thank you.
Michael.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to open up the next public hearing for 55 Milliken Avenue. Is anyone here or online for Milliken Avenue?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Rick Goodrow with United Consultants.
Aha. Okay.
So, this project, again, we were before the commission, at previous hearing, gave the commission an overview of the project. Basically, just to summarize, the applicant's looking at building an addition of just about approximately 1,000 square feet of footprint area, within the buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland. We have had an opportunity to review the first round of comments from Beta, and we just have received the second round of comments from Beta dated April 25th, 2025, in response to our revised plan and response to comments. And from the sound of things, I guess the first question that we should cover is, has the commission had an opportunity to review these comments, since a good portion of them are suggestions to the commission, deferences to the commission as to are things adequate or sufficient, or where we stand. So
Okay, so
the
let me-
commission has not had enough time to do that.
Looked like most of it was administrative. But, you know, I think the big question is, right, we got an increase in the impervious surfaces to over 30% with proposed mitigation being removing of a yard waste pile within the BBW and planting a couple high bush blueberries. So that's, and then adding a dewatering plan as a special condition. So that's looks like what we captured, Rick. Does that sound, anything else that you see in there? I've got it up, but anything else you see? I think the impervious surface mitigation is probably the discussion point, in our opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think, some of the other things they asked for, the construction sequence.
Right. Pretty standard
little
stuff.
buttressing of that, but I think, that's pretty straightforward. We could discuss those things and come to an agreement.
Yeah, typically, we would just condition that stuff in, so,
Right.
unless you have an issue, we can discuss it if you have an
Nope.
issue, but that all just is condition stuff we typically do, so.
Sure. That's what we were hoping for. Thank you. So as far,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Nope, you're on.
So I'm up.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm actually in Chicago, so there's a bit of a delay here, so I apologize if I cut in. Yeah, as far as the increase in the impervious, we're going from approximately 17% to approximately, let me just get the number, I believe it's right around 31%, which exceeds your 30%. We had provided the mitigation of the removal of the yard waste. And yes, my numbers are 17.8% existing, 31.1% proposed. We did provide the yard waste removal, as well as 2 plantings to hopefully persuade the commission that would be adequate mitigation for the 1.8% or so increase above the 30% provision in your bylaw regulations.
So Rick, same question as I asked the previous applicant, which is that 1.1% overage, right? What does that
Yep.
translate to into square feet?
So,
Roughly,
yeah,
roughly.
no, let me get to my notes here. So, the 14% difference, or thereabouts, 13%,
Yeah.
13+%, is representative of the roughly 1,000 square feet being added.
Okay, all right.
So, you know, you're probably talking about 70 or 80 square feet.
Yep. Okay. Okay, so when we talk about
I would like to
percentages,
add a
yeah.
couple of, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, when we talk about percentages, it's better to keep in mind what exactly are we physically talking about in terms of square feet, right?
Yep.
Whereas-
So one thing we did do is we proposed to remove, which we always have had this proposal, to remove some asphalt located outside the buffer zone. Also, we're proposing to remove the existing walkway that connected to the house and provide for a permeable walkway, a paved walkway. We provided a detail on how that would be constructed to allow infiltration to occur. So that helps minimize the number down to where we are. And previously, we had proposed the rear exit of the project to have the stairs exit, the landing out of the rear of the addition, and then the stairs to run towards the existing bulkhead to the south along the rear of the house. We flipped that, and that allowed us to eliminate any work within the 25 to 50-foot buffer zone.
Yeah,
So
okay.
all of this proposed work is within the 50 to 100-foot buffer zone now.
Okay.
So we thought those were also things that we tried to incorporate that we just wanted to highlight to the commission.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Thank you.
Any thoughts?
Comments? Richard, any comments?
I think they did a very workmanlike presentation. Looks good to me.
Okay. Bree Kalai, do you have any comments on this?
No, I do not at this time.
But I just want to confirm that everybody's had a chance to read Beta's, yes? Okay. All right.
So, Rick, looks like what we'll do is we'll condition the comments. It looks like they're all pretty straightforward.
Yeah, let's just do that. So work the conditions.
Yeah, so we'll work that up. And you guys want to formally respond to Beta's letter?
We can, sure.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you just confirm and, you know, you're good with that, and then we'll write up the conditions as appropriate and go from there. And, you know, hopefully we can wrap it up.
And Rich, where are you with the ZBA right now?
Oh, yeah.
We're all set with the ZBA.
Okay.
I believe the appeal period's over. They voted to approve it, the
Okay.
decision was
Okay.
filed.
Okay, okay.
And we're through that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you get that in before next Thursday, Rick?
Yes.
Okay, then we should be able to wrap this up. That'd be
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Okay.
Do that. Okay. All right. Does anyone have anyone in the audience or online have any questions or comments about this project? There being none, I'll take a motion to continue.
All right, give you a motion to continue the NOI for 55 Milliken Ave to May 15th at 7:04.
Second.
Okay. Louis,
Vote to continue.
Vote to continue.
continue.
Continue?
Continue.
Continue?
Richard,
Continue.
continue. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
And now the one that everyone's been waiting for. Now I'd like to open up the NOI for 444 East Central Street.
Well, I guess as we begin, I would give you proof of a butter notification if you would like. I scanned these to brief allow already.
Yeah,
I
right.
would
Yep,
take
we
the
have the
originals
scans.
back if you don't mind,
Yes,
but if
yes,
you
yes.
wanted to take a look.
We got,
No, we have
the
the
scanned
scan-
copies.
we have the
So
scanned
if you
copies.
want,
We have- we have.
we've gone through, it. Thank you, Bill, for
Yeah.
bringing those across.
Yeah. We confirm they exist.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, folks. Chris Frateroli. I'm a wetland scientist with Goddard Consulting. I'm joined by the applicant, AJ Alavezos, and engineer on the project, professional engineer with Allen & Major, Carlton Quinn. So we had just recently wrapped up our ANRAD proceedings on this site here, 444 East Central Street. So I won't harp too long on what we have out there for existing conditions, but as a quick overview, we have a perennial stream that bisects the site, culverted in a couple places, casts a 200 foot riverfront area in both directions. We have a bordering vegetated wetland system, primarily kind of along the southern portion of the site, kind of creeps up the southern section of the stream as well. That casts a 100 foot riverfront area. We have a couple of isolated vegetated wetlands sprinkled around, and we have bordering land subject to flooding here as well. As kind of a point of order, we are currently filed under the Act only, as this is a 40B proceeding. We have waivers in front of the ZBA for the permitting process under the local bylaw. So kind of TBD on where exactly that lands, but despite not filing under the bylaw procedurally, we still have made strong attempts to comply with the bylaw everywhere we can. So you'll note that as we go through the plan sets, the site is a little too big to fit on one sheet. So each plan sheet has sort of the northern half of the site, and the following sheet has the southern half. They do overlap a good bit in the middle. So first up, erosion control plan. We have erosion controls basically encircling the site all around the property boundaries the whole way, as well as around those wetland resources in the center of the site. And this is the same highlight for the southern portion of the site, showing the erosion controls kind of highlighted in orange there. As far as site layout, site design, what we have is essentially 5 residential buildings, 1 clubhouse building. Our total unit count right now is 264 units. One of those buildings is entirely outside of the riverfront area. One other is almost entirely outside of the riverfront area. So the bulk of what we anticipate to have conversation about here is probably those inner buildings and that clubhouse building.
Can I ask just, are the buildings like labeled like A, B, C, D, you know, in any way, any specific order? No.
I don't know that. I don't think they have any specific
Official,
labeling in that way.
Okay.
They're really just identified by story and unit count. So here, you'll lose a little bit of the frontage of the site, but you get the bulk of the development on this plan sheet. So 3 multifamily buildings on the right side of the stream, 2 on the left side of the stream, and 1 clubhouse and amenities building up towards the frontage of the road. We are actually set back a fair bit from the road up there as well. So I suspect that as we go through this, one of our most controlling wetland feature will be the riverfront area. And as far as our work in the riverfront area, we had prepared a little side-by-side that had been submitted to you as part of the notice of intent. And just very high level, we have on the left side our existing conditions within the riverfront area. As a reminder, what we're mostly concerned about is what we consider degraded riverfront area, which is areas that lack topsoil, dumping grounds, abandoned junkyards, these types of things as the Wetlands Protection Act defines. So on the left side, you can see everything that's colored in is within riverfront area. There are, those riverfront area lines shown in pink, probably a little hard to see at distance. The darker colors are the inner riparian zone, so 0 to 100 feet from the river. The outer colors are the lighter colors are the outer riparian zone, 100 to 200. So on the left, we have existing, and what that looks like essentially is existing degraded riverfront area on the site is about 180,650 square feet in that neighborhood. As far as vegetated riverfront area, we have about 189,000 square feet of vegetated riverfront area. So kind of the dichotomy between degraded and vegetated here. As far as proposed conditions goes, for the vast majority of our work, we are reusing existing degraded riverfront area. So these are areas that already lack topsoil, already don't have vegetation, are already occupied by dump piles and abandoned vehicles, construction materials, these types of things that are really strewn about the site, although primarily concentrated kind of in this right quadrant here. As far as proposed conditions go, we actually end up with a net decrease of about 38,000 square feet of degraded riverfront area as we go from existing to proposed. And Tyler, I think there's one called maybe regulatory analysis. It would be in the NOI booklet towards the bottom. Yeah. Probably towards the bottom. So as part of that, what we're doing is we have, for the most part, our proposed work is reusing those degraded riverfront areas so that we are not tremendously expanding what we have for degraded riverfront area here. We are also, for the most part, pulling back away from the stream, and a lot of those existing degraded riverfront areas are going to get revegetated with a pretty robust native planting palette, which are included in the landscape plans that were submitted to you. So that's the gist of what we have for riverfront area here. The next is our work in BLSF. So this is the 100-year floodplain. And the way that we sort of break this down, these weren't in the, these were submitted like kind of under separate cover.
Oh.
I don't know if I saw them posted on the website.
Okay. So not in this packet?
They may not be. They were
Okay.
submitted kind of separately.
Okay.
Probably supplemental flood storage. down
The flood storage, it is actually on the website under the project.
Okay.
Okay.
Filing.
It should be in that booklet though.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep. So Carlton may be able to speak to this a little bit more eloquently than I can, but essentially we do have some impact to BLSF, primarily just around that crossing at the center of the site. We have to expand it a little bit in order to enable sufficient access for vehicles and emergency vehicles in particular. So we have a little bit of fill in that floodplain there, and each of these sheets will highlight the fill at each contour interval. So that's when we go and calculate floodplain fill, we calculate it at each contour interval between each 1 foot contour.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of see it as we click through, going through those. And barring the kind of painful number crunch, at the end of the day, we have a net increase in flood storage capacity on the site of about 4,090 cubic feet of volume. So we lose a little bit of flood storage right around the crossing, but we more than make up for it with grading as we go down the river and lot of that can be attributed to our wetland replication area in that southeast corner, which we'll get to momentarily. We do have a couple of isolated vegetated wetlands that are actually on the site itself. Unfortunately, they're not really conducive to executing a project here. So they are proposed to be filled as they are not jurisdictional under the Wetlands Protection Act. But despite not being jurisdictional, we are proposing to replicate those wetlands kind of bordering the main wetland system in that southeast corner at a 1-to-1 ratio. So that looks like about 7,145 square feet of wetland replication shown, and you can see it on this plan in that southeast corner, that large redder area there.
Do you have the IVWs out of here?
I don't think they're shown on these sheets, but we can find them on another sheet real quick.
No, we looked at them, I just couldn't remember.
So we're back to existing conditions plan here, but we have one right over here outlined in green. Yeah, they wouldn't be on that guy. I'm just looking at existing conditions right here. So we have one outlined in green over here, kind of on the inside of those several compost piles that we had talked about through the ANRAD.
Yep.
And then another over here, which looks to be some historic excavation hole that had kind of developed wetland characteristics over time.
That's right.
So we do have another actually just off-site. This is a stormwater basin, but likely jurisdictional under the bylaw. So we flagged it out as an isolated wetland. So 3 IVWs kind of in conversation here, 2 on site.
Thanks.
And the last kind of piece of consideration here will be the work in the buffer zone. And I apologize, I don't have the clearest depiction of where the buffer zone lines fall, and we can get you something a little bit more easy to view at a glance for that. But for the most part, we've tried to keep our work outside of certainly the inner portions of the buffer zone as much as possible. We are almost entirely outside of the 0 to 25 section of the buffer zone, and again, not regulated under the Wetlands Protection Act, but we're making attempts to comply with the bylaw here. The work that does occur in that inner 25 feet of the buffer zone is really entirely limited to either reuse of existing degraded areas, replanting. There's going to be a substantial amount of replanting that goes on in that area where there's currently nothing. There are a couple of walking paths that meander kind of along the stream there for aesthetic and recreation purposes. And we do have some stormwater management infrastructure pieces that creep into that inner 25 feet of the buffer zone. And then the last major component is the crossing itself at the center of the site. Beyond that, we are mostly at least 50 feet away. The buildings are almost entirely, some just clip into the inner 50 feet of the buffer zone, but for the most part are outside of 50 feet from the wetland. And then the vast majority of our work is occurring at least 50 feet away from the wetland. And the work that's occurring within that is mostly restoration, reuse of existing disturbed areas, and some planting and stormwater infrastructure that goes along with that. So as far as wetlands considerations, that is the broad overview here, and there is a lot of detail on these plans, and I'm sure we could talk for a long time about them. So that will kind of wrap up my piece of it. I don't know if Carlton, you have anything to add in particular, but I think we'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission has at this point.
Open for questions? Anyone?
I had a question. You had mentioned that you're going to increase the flood storage.
Correct.
However, but it's going to decrease at the crossing?
Yeah, so it's just a matter of kind of shifting around where that volume is. So we have to kind of expand the crossing a little bit to allow for access. So we do lose a little bit of flood storage right around that crossing point, but we more than make up for it You know, if you just move 100 feet downstream.
Can you show me on the map where you're talking about where the crossing would be?
Absolutely. Yes, yeah, and this is an existing crossing. This is not a new crossing. We
Right.
just have
No,
to, we just have to expand it a little bit.
I didn't want to assume, so that's why I'm wanting to.
So here in the center of the site is where this existing crossing is, and each of these represents a 1 foot contour interval. So you can see our existing flood storage comes up just on top of that existing crossing a little bit. We lose a little bit of that as we expand the crossing, and then we end up more than making up for it just down along the sides of the river as we go down a little further south. So Tyler's got the proposed up there. I've got the existing right here.
So we had talked one other time about further down by the road. As far as the elevation, is that when you first were
You mean
proposing
the
it?
East Central Street?
Never mind.
Or-
yeah.
Are you talking about that? You talking about the access road?
Yeah.
End of the neighborhood, it's in the back.
Yeah.
Right, she's talking about like, you know, when you go across the
Oh.
isthmus.
That's that one, yeah.
Right,
Isthmus,
down
basically.
gradient,
Yeah.
several hundred feet.
Yeah.
Outside of our project
Yeah.
site
Outside
here,
project, yeah.
so, you know, no change in that.
Right, right,
Thank you.
Yeah.
right. Questions, additional?
So there's 5 buildings that would house people, 1 clubhouse,
Correct.
and it looks like 3 garages?
Yeah, do you know what the count is on that? There are a couple of freestanding garages, and they're not like a parking superstructure. They're really just kind of a covering for a handful of cars.
There's 5 garages, it's total 29 spaces. They're above grade, you know, concrete.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Sorry, big plan set.
Good so far.
I'm good. Richard, do you have any questions?
I'm pretty good.
Rika Lai, any questions?
No questions, no.
Okay.
So yeah, those garages are, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think a 5th up by the clubhouse.
No, on the bottom left.
Oh, there we go. 3 on this side, 2 on this side. They're just at grade, 1 story, basically,
story.
basically a carport.
Yeah.
Carport, yep. Yeah. Okay.
One question.
Yes, please.
So I know you're familiar with our bylaw about replication, and it's 2 to 1, so would you consider that?
Right. Yeah, we had that was initially the plan here, and as we kind of continued to expand what was included for stormwater infrastructure, we kind of got squeezed on the amount of room that we had. So because those isolated wetlands are not jurisdictional under the state act, and we're not filed under the bylaw, you know, we could probably get away with not replicating at all, but we wanted to kind of strike that compromise and at least provide that 1-to-1 replication.
And I will add, when we originally field surveyed, we thought the amount of isolated vegetated wetlands was far less than they were existing. So when we went out and did our ANRAD and actually flagged it, we found out there was a lot more than we anticipated. So we had fully prepared to do 2-to-1 ratio. That's what we showed on the original plan when we came in front of you guys during the LIP review process. But once we went out and flagged it and realized that there was substantially more, we were limited to a 1-to-1. And we coordinated with Rika Lai about that change before we came in here to you guys.
Thank you.
I think we had conversation about a couple acres of wetlands in the back being moved to conservation, right?
Correct. Yeah. Do you want to give an update on where that stands?
We're still prepared to discuss that further. I think we showed we looked at the exact area and kind of mapped out where it would be. I think it comes out to about 1.92 acres.
Okay,
So we're prepared to discuss that further with you guys.
great.
Okay. Okay. Are there any more questions from the commissioners?
Not at this point.
Okay. Well, then, I
Chair
will-
Livingstone?
Yes?
I do have, not a question, but I just wanted to follow up with a comment. So commissioners, as you know, this is a 40B, right? So ZBA has the ultimate authority to waive local bylaw, which is why it's not filed under local bylaw. It's common, you saw that with 121 Grove Street as well. Typical process, although ZBA hasn't requested this yet, is to one, receive the waivers list from the applicant, right? And then ask the commission to respond to that waivers list. So I do imagine that'll happen during my maternity leave.
Yeah.
So be sure to keep apprised on that, and then that will be your avenue to provide comment on those bylaw waivers. For example, Commissioner Ryan, the 2-to-1, things of that nature. But ultimately, it does rest on ZBA and their decision if they're going to waive local bylaw or not.
So that's it, so the 40B process doesn't make that quote-unquote automatic, that ZBA has to enact that? I wasn't quite clear.
ZBA, it gives ZBA, yes. In the town of Franklin, ZBA has the power to do that.
Okay.
They cannot strip the Wetlands Protection Act, but they can
Right.
strip your jurisdiction from local bylaw.
From, Mass.
440B,
Yep, yeah,
So is this a friendly
So-
40B or a
Yeah.
actual 40B?
friendly 40.
Friendly 40B,
Because
that's what I
they're
thought.
trying to- yeah.
Yep. So, and what makes it friendly, town council voted to approve it back earlier this summer, right?
Right,
So,
right.
for all intents and purposes, it has the elected officials' seal of approval already on record, voted in.
Okay.
To that point, I just want to put it on your docket, commissioners, that let's say ZBA does not waive every bylaw. They did for 121 Grove, that ship sailed. But if they don't for 444 East Central Street, you will want to go back and then review under local bylaw as well. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Yep,
Yes.
yep,
For your
got it.
streamlined
Yes.
process?
Right.
Yeah,
So I just want to put that in memory, that I'm saying it now,
Well,
because
because right now, yeah, because
it'll be
they're
around.
not filed under local, but if ZBA says, no, we're not going to waive everything,
then it would
then they
need,
will have to be, yeah.
interesting,
Correct.
okay.
Yes, understood.
Good procedure,
yes.
yeah.
And then, just as a follow-up comment, and then this is also for AJ and then Chris, Conservation Commission, and you can tell me differently, you 7, but typically also does a peer review.
Yeah,
So I can send that out to Beta. I hadn't yet because I wanted to discuss it tonight. So that is a right of the Conservation Commission under the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yeah.
That they can do their own independent peer review. So I'm sure you're aware of that, and I do believe we talked about that. Or I had mentioned it anyways.
Yes, Rikolai. I just would want to be mindful, if we could, that the 2 peer reviewers, since the ZBA has a stormwater civil peer review engineer engaged and the peer review team from conservation, I just want to make sure we're not duplicating efforts on the peer review with 2 different engineers reviewing the same items. So I requested the scope of services that was authorized by the zoning board for their peer review team to double check that. And then I was planning on sharing that with you just to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts. And, since we're already having Hancock, who's the peer review team for the ZBA reviewing stormwater, it doesn't seem like it would be productive for Beta to also be reviewing stormwater, for example. Obviously, I understand they'll be reviewing lots of other things for the Conservation Commission on the project, which we're completely open to, obviously. But that's all the only comment I wanted to share.
I think that's fair.
I have actually just one comment, and apologies, AJ, but For 121 Grove Street, commissioners, if you recall, ZBA finished their review and Beta still found issues with stormwater standards being met for the state. I would not recommend giving up your stormwater right, especially if stormwater infrastructure is in your jurisdiction.
Which is right.
Your right is protected under the Wetlands Protection Act. ZBA has no qualms over that. AJ, you can go back to ZBA. You can ask them not to review stormwater, but unfortunately, stormwater is more of a conservation commission issue than it is ZBA.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, I'll go back to the ZBA and share that with them.
That's
you know,
fine. I'm sure the chair is watching this meeting.
Yeah, we're required to obviously adhere to state law with regards to stormwater, which we will. So.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay, so we're going to take a 1-minute break before we go to public comments. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, is that right?
Yep.
1 minute break.
Yep.
Please note the time of when you return. You have to note it.
Okay.
Time is 8:40,
Recording in
8:48,
progress.
just changed. 48,
Just
we're
made
back
it.
on track.
Just made it. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to ask, is there anyone, which there are, either online or in chambers, that has questions or comments about this project? Yes.
So one thing to remember is we do have a 3-minute limit for public comments.
Especially for big
group.
big groups.
So we'll,
Try to
want
hear-
everybody to have their chance, but just
Yeah.
to be clear, so we'll,
Right.
that's standard for all public town meetings.
And we do have an 11 o'clock by law. We have to stop at 11, just so you guys know.
Yeah, hi, I'm Richard Stratt from 10 Hayden Lane in Franklin. I actually spoke at this meeting about a month ago and discussing, I guess, the isthmus issue. So the concern has to do with, now that we see some of the hydrology data, concern is with the stormwater runoff and implications off the site. And just to orient everyone, I brought a copy of the abutters map that was provided, in the material today. And in that map, I've highlighted the part where the actual site is, and the part that down here in yellow, where most of the Cook's Farm development is. The part with the black arrow is this isthmus location. That's the one point of access and egress from here. You can also see from also the data provided from this meeting that point is right on this Uncas Brook that runs through the site. Right, so that any potential flooding implications up here lead to flooding implications there. And if in fact that road, as I said before, a month ago, if that road ever to flood more than a few feet, that would mean there is no access whatsoever for emergency vehicles, police, fire, ambulance. There's no access whatsoever. And that's particularly interesting now that there's hydrology data. And so one of the things that I noticed in the report that was actually filed in the drainage report is that in the event of a 100-year storm, there actually would be floodage there. And so from the typical 100-year rainfall amounts, I note for summary for Pond 2P, that's page 110 of the drainage report, the actual height to which the water would reach would be 80 feet. Sorry, would be, so I have this right? Yeah, it would be, I'm sorry, I have this right. Yeah, so it would be exactly 9 feet above it was 80 feet, I guess, 9 feet above the elevation level of that road. So that would in fact be completely blocked off. So the question is not, I understand that it's not the responsibility of the developer to stop problems that occurred even before the development happened, but what will the effect of the development, including the added impervious area in the development, be on the danger and the possibility of rendering some 50 homes totally cut off from access to the rest of Franklin? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
John McCaskill, I'm a resident of the town. I am a bit concerned. I heard some commentary by this young man about old vehicles, cars, storage on that plot of land. Has the town or anybody done any research about any potential contaminants to the soil? And if so, if that soil is contaminated, will moving that soil around as part of this project put any of the aquifer there in jeopardy of being contaminated as well? That's my question.
Sure.
I can respond. We did a phase 1 environmental study. We included an executive summary of that, I think, in the comprehensive permit application, if I'm not mistaken, and it's come up clean, no environmental contaminants or recognized environmental contaminants on site, so.
Okay. Next? Anyone else?
I'm Doug Opelt at 19 Northern Spy Road. My property is directly to the south of this property, like touching their land. It seems like, which I'm not quite sure, but it looks as though they're filling some of that land in with dirt, maybe, I don't know. Where there's a parking lot, it seems, as well at the very south end. So all that is within 100, 150 feet of my house property. Well, my house actually, because my property touches that line there. My question is, has either the developer or the commission ever looked at my land for flooding with regards to this 15 acres they're developing?
That would be part of the project.
Would?
It would not be part of the project.
To look at the impact to my house, it's not part of the project?
Well, I'm just saying you are not inside the project perimeter, right? So they're talking about building inside the project.
Right.
So if there's something that's happening, and this is the issue, if there's something that's happening outside of the project, that's not conservation, right? I mean, we're looking at the project as what's inside the project bounds. That is what we're looking at. So if there's something that's going to be impacting something downstream, and it is like, say, a flooding issue, for example, that's for the town. That's for the town to take up. Because if you're talking about if there's a safety impact or let's say emergency vehicles can't get into something, right? I mean, that's something that you would take up with, say, the planning board or the ZBA or something like that. Basically, you wouldn't conservation is only about the protected wetlands and resources inside the project.
Most of my backyard is protected.
But it's not inside the project.
But it's not inside the project.
It's
so
not
it
the
doesn't
project.
matter.
Yeah, your land is not the project.
Right.
Right.
Could I jump in here for a second?
Yes.
Actually, Chris, or any, the engineer there, what I would suggest the commission to ask is how stormwater management on the site is going to prevent downstream flooding.
Yeah, that's pretty much what everybody wants to know.
So that would help mitigate and answer the citizen comment.
Yes.
Yes, my
Because-
name's Carlton, I'm civil engineer with Allen Major Associates. And as part of this process, we talked about the stormwater peer review. We've provided a project with a stormwater report, 500 pages of calculation and narratives, figures, to show that our project has mitigated the stormwater that's discharging from the site. There's all sorts of standards and regulations for that from the Mass DEP. And to show that we're not impacting downstream projects because we're mitigating it all on site. And that's probably going to be a major part of this process through the ZBA and the Concom, is the stormwater peer review is always a majority of the discussion going through this. So we'll be going through that with the peer reviewer. It's very difficult to discuss technical issues of stormwater within a public setting with some people that aren't familiar with the regulations and the engineering standards. So that's why you've hired a third-party peer reviewer to make sure that we're not overstepping our bounds and pushing more water downstream than we are currently. So whatever the existing discharges are there today, it's our requirement to meet or reduce those discharges downstream in the proposed conditions. So those are to be mitigated as part of this project. Does that make sense?
Yes. And if I may make hopefully a helpful comparison. Project, this is discharging, the hypothetical project is discharging a bunch of water that goes into the wetlands, changing its functions and characteristics. That's our problem. Bunch of water basically goes someplace, not in a wetlands, not in a protected area, floods someone's basement. That's ZBA. Okay? That's the distinction, right? So we only have jurisdiction over protected resources inside of wetlands and protected resources. That's it. So that's the distinction.
So, follow-up comment, Chair Livingstone, only because I spoke to this resident at the counter. So his basin is jurisdictional.
Okay.
Just FYI,
All right.
under local bylaw.
Okay.
But two, there is a spillway in between the wetland complex that is to the south of 444 East Central Street that speaks to that basin.
Okay.
So while yes, he's outside of the parcel boundary, what I was trying to mitigate was have Carlton answer his questions about the stormwater on site that would capture large storm events to try and slow down that water from going right into the basin that he maintains.
Understood. Understood. Yes. Okay.
So the two issues we got, right, that would be helpful to bring some layman's terms to, if we could, right, is the net result of the flow into Uncas Brook, right? I think we heard that was your concern, right? And then the flow of water off the property into abutters' properties, and how the stormwater plan might be able to better, maybe even, well, I don't want to say better, would be managing that and the net impact. I mean, does that sound like something we could get into without a ton of technicalities?
Right.
That's just a question.
So currently on the site, there's no stormwater mitigation. It falls
yeah,
to the ground, some of it
100%,
infiltrates, some of it runs
right,
off into the
right,
pond.
right.
In the proposed conditions, we're adding obviously a lot of impervious area.
Right.
All of that impervious area, all of it on the whole site is getting captured into a pipe system.
There you go.
Discharged, it's actually cleaned through a water quality device, then discharged to an underground infiltration system that allows the water to be recharged into the ground. And the outlet to that is basically for emergency overflows for bigger storms, 25, 50 or 100-year storms, it'll overflow that. And it's our requirement to show that in those flooding events, we're not discharging more than the existing, so that we can prove that we're not providing any negative flooding to downstream properties.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Does
Sounds
everyone
good.
understand that? That's a really important.
Can I ask a
Yes.
follow-up on the technical
Please,
question?
please.
Go ahead. So I understand from the report that there's discharge, it's hydrologically connected, I believe is the phrase, any water that is being managed into the system of the Uncas Brook. So why would that in itself not contribute to the downstream flooding? It's not simply that you're putting taking the water from place A and putting it to place B underground into the Uncas Brook, and it's okay. If it goes into the Uncas Brook system, it's in the Uncas Brook system, and anywhere downstream will suffer the effects of that extra water.
putting it at the ground is
So,
not
I mean,
sufficient.
we're not creating any extra water. The amount of water that falls on this project is gonna fall in it whether we're there or not. So that, all that water is getting collected in Uncas Brook currently. We're just mitigating it on site so it doesn't flood. We're holding it back. We're allowing it to recharge, so it goes back into Uncas Brook slowly. So those flooding waters after that initial rainstorm are allowed to flow through. And then as the groundwater recharges it slower to control flooding in the area.
Maybe this is a technical question that Chris would know the answer to, but right now, you don't have impervious area, and perhaps water goes directly into the ground, not into the Uncas system. You put impervious area, and then it flows into the Uncas Brook system. Why isn't that is that not a possibility?
I mean, that's the whole gist of the stormwater design and report that we're giving. There's a model design for the existing site. It shows that, you know, grass doesn't allow water to flow off the same as impervious. There's speeds associated with how the water flows off. There's, depending on the type of soil below the ground, it changes on how much it dissipates into the ground and how much is runoff. There's a multitude of things that affect how water runs off a site. And that's generally why it's kept to, you know, a peer reviewer to peer reviewer review, because to discuss all of these items one by one in a public setting like this just is not very productive in my experience. I'm happy to explain, you know, points of how it's done, but exactly what you said is so complicated, it just, I could not
Okay,
explain
wait.
this
Can I
clearly
take
in a forum like this.
Can I take a shot? Okay, so let's do 3 mental experiments for a second, okay? I'm standing at the isthmus, okay, right now, today, okay? Nothing's been done on the property, right? And I'm sure you have witnessed this, whatever you guys have seen, because you live there, right? Some big rainstorm has happened. You're standing there and you see water rising, the water has risen or it's come closer to the road or whatever, right? And you say, okay, big rainstorm, water goes up, whatever, and there's nothing there, okay? Part 2, these guys come, make a big building, make a bunch of impervious area, nothing else. Clearly, when the water comes, there'll be more water, because the water's not going to the ground anymore, it's running off into, now you're standing there at the road, suddenly you have 4 feet, okay? It's like, oh, all right? Now, but, in the third case, they've put in all the systems. So instead of actually just flowing out and going into the water body, going downstream and raising the water level, right? It's going into these actually chambers, and essentially it's arranged so that it goes deep into the ground as opposed to out. So it goes in as opposed to out. And the idea is that if you do that correctly from an engineering calculation standpoint, that first experiment where you're standing there at the road, and the third experiment with all the chambers look exactly the same. No change, right? That is what you're aiming for, okay? That's what they say they're going to do with all the underground construction.
And the question is their plan likely to succeed?
Well, again, but that's why you have a peer review. Because a peer review will then take the engineering calculations and say, if I do these 2 experiments in my head, there should be no change, right? Is that true? And then you have all this massive amounts, 15 pages of like calculus that you have to basically do. This is all Diffie-Q, by the way, for those of you that took Diffie-Q. Basically, right, it just flows. Okay, you know. So, right, it's all Diffie-Q. So basically, it's flow in, flow out. So, I mean, that's what you have, right? So you basically make these models, all these calculus models, and basically you see whether or not that third person and the first person see the same thing. Okay? This is the equivalent of Einstein standing in an elevator, right, and trying to describe gravity. That's kind of what it is. So, same idea. Okay? Is that helpful?
Yeah.
But that's what they're trying to do. Yeah, that's what they're trying to do. But it's all based upon the calculations. And that's why you have a third review of the calculations. Some independent party look at it saying, okay, they look good. Okay, we get the same thing. Yeah, that's it. Go.
Hi, Jeff. Gene Grella, 36 Redgate Lane. Mine is just a question. It's around, there's a lot of variances, being asked for in this project. And the question is if these are waivers of town bylaws that you guys are supposed to uphold. What is going to be? I know the ZBA has the responsibility ultimately of deciding which waivers to give or not to give.
Right.
What's going to be as we go forward here? The commission's role in, looking at these bylaws and advising of the ZBA.
Well, we don't,
with regard to that.
we don't advise the ZBA.
Okay.
ZBA is an independent body, okay? I mean, we basically take what they give us, and operate under that. So basically, again, it's just hypothetical. You have 20 bylaws. They might leave us 10. Okay, so those are the 10 that we look at.
Yeah,
like a project, for
but there'll be the
example.
ones on stormwater and
Yeah,
wetlands.
Could be, yeah.
And I think as Bricolai was saying, that, they'll be looking to you, I think,
Right.
to do that, so.
But again, keep in mind that, what you're hoping, and this is why you have a ZBA, you're hoping that they will take into consideration things like the downstream flooding and all this other kind of stuff, and consider what, additional restrictions they're gonna leave on the books, so to speak, from the locals, right? Such that they can better control and better patrol the situation so this doesn't happen. I mean, that's what you're hoping they do,
Right.
right? So.
But they're also, I don't know what level of expertise they have in wetlands and stormwater, and that's.
Well, but they have experts, and they have.
Yeah, but
they
you
have-
guys are the,
I
like,
mean, we
this is
don't,
what
we
you
don't
do.
work independently, right? I mean, they're,
Right.
right, so.
I also think it's important to state that our role still is protecting the wetlands. So the Wetlands Protection Act is not ever going to be waived. So that's still in play. It's just the town bylaws that may or may not be waived by ZBA.
Well, that's what he's saying, that's what he's asking about the bylaws specifically. And the question is, basically, the ZBA decides to waive everything, then okay, fine, then we have nothing to monitor. If they give us like 2, well, then those are the ones that we look at. I mean, that's kinda how it works.
Okay. Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
What thought has been given to the, we know there's a well back there. When I talked to Bruce about it, Bruce is like, well, the water flows the other way and it's not really, this shouldn't impact the well. But I think it does because it's considered zone 2 and this is the groundwater that feeds that well. So, what consideration is the commission given to the effects of the well?
I can jump in here,
Yeah.
actually. So Jean, part of the 40B process, I'm gonna reiterate what I said, because you did reference what I said earlier, is that, right, ZBA gets the waivers list, then typically they ask the commission to opine on those waivers, and then the commission drafts a response letter and sends it back to ZBA. Commissioner Ryan is right, the Wetlands Protection Act stands. ZBA cannot waive that. So the role of the commission then is to review under the Wetlands Protection Act as opposed to the bylaws.
Right.
My comment earlier for the commission was to keep it in the back of their brain that they may need to re-review under local bylaw as well if ZBA doesn't waive
Right,
local bylaw.
right.
Your comment about stormwater, so stormwater infrastructure, that's within conservation jurisdiction, whether that's local bylaw or Wetlands Protection Act, conservation jurisdiction. I know that's redundant, but it means 2 different things, but similar in that sentence. To the point of the well, typically in 40B projects, our town engineer and DPW folks, our superintendent for water and sewer, he's also a PE. They get the same stormwater peer review, they get the same initial submission, and they review and provide comment. So for the role of the Conservation Commission is that they would receive a letter or an email, usually comes to me, then I deliver it to them, with feedback and comments from the town engineer.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Commission.
Hello.
Thank you for your time. My name is Amanda Fitzgerald, and I'm at 1 Reed Street, and I'm here before you in person to ask the commission not to move forward with the project proposal submitted by the applicant. I firmly believe that the applicant's project proposal is not in the town of Franklin's best interest to protect our wetlands. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone online that would like to make a comment or have a question about the project? Don't see
Yes, I'd like to speak.
Okay, please.
Heidi Winokur, 2 Crystal Drive. So I'm a lifelong resident of Franklin, so I've watched the town grow over the years. Our concern is the wetlands, the buffers, them building on so much of the land, and I feel like the water runoff that, yes, as long as they say they're going to do these things, but in the event it doesn't work, you have this project, and now you have all this water runoff. Also, I've watched your, a lot of times I have friends that are dealing with the building of Tri-County, and I know you guys had tons of stuff that you made them jump through hoops for when they pulled out their sonnet tubes for mud puddles, and you delayed building that project for so long. This, for a school, and this is a huge apartment complex that, one, we don't need any more apartments in Franklin, but I know that's a moot point because that's not your jurisdiction. However, there are streams running through this development. There needs to be more concern for the wetlands. They're building right up close to that. And also the soil that they talked about, they didn't do soil testing. They basically looked up that phase 1 testing that they did. All they looked for to see if there was any spills or anything done on the ground. Did they actually go out there and test the soil to see if there was anything in it? I guess those are some of the points that I wanted to make to you guys.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi.
Is there anyone else online? Okay, there being none, guess we'll take a motion.
Okay. Anything further you guys want to say relative to the comments? Not that you have to, but just want to give you a chance. Or?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, I think all of this will be thoroughly vetted as we continue down the road here, both, in this public hearing setting as well as with at least 2 different peer reviewers, as well as review by town engineer and
Right.
every other set of eyes on it. So I don't have anything more to add at this point, and I think we will, thoroughly address all of this at the end of the day.
Okay.
Great, thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, I will give you a motion to continue the NOI for 444 East Central Street to May 15th at 7:05.
Second.
Louis?
Vote to continue.
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 Continue?
Continue.
Continue.
Richard?
Continue.
Continue. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate the
folks.
participation.
Thank you.
Now we're just at Prospect.
We've got, oh yes, COCs for Prospect Street and 25 Forge Parkway. We got an issue with Forge Parkway, but yeah, I think Prospect Street seems pretty academic. Wait till the room clears. Yeah. We get here.
Sorry, guys, we'll be quiet in a second.
That's
good.
all
No,
right,
no.
Chris, don't worry.
Don't worry about it.
It would be nice to see where the buffer zones are on these.
He said he's gonna use it, yeah, so I hope he does.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Night.
Okay,
All right, yeah.
next up, now we get.
Now it's just us.
Now it's just us, so I'm so lonely. Now we get to the certificates of compliance, and the first one up is Prospect Street culvert repairs. Is there anyone here or online for the Prospect Street culvert repair? No.
Yeah, I think this is pretty academic, just the
Okay.
COC for the emergency
Yeah.
um, approval.
This looks pretty straightforward. Bricolage, is there anything else we should know?
No.
Okay.
Give you a motion to approve the,
Well, okay, I guess one thing about this is that now it has a beaver flow device in it.
Ah, there you go.
Yay.
oh, wow. You know, it's funny, I saw them out there doing something else. I wondered what it was. That's what they did, huh? Put that in.
Yeah, they had to go back because we didn't install wildlife doors. So I asked them to go back and install wildlife doors.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
All right, well, that's good. Good upgrade.
Yep.
I'll give you a motion to approve the COC for the Prospect Street culvert repairs.
Have a second?
Second.
Second.
Vote to approve.
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 Approve?
Approve.
Approve?
Richard?
Approve.
Approve. Da-da-da. Good job. Okay, and the next COC up is the one for 25 Forge Parkway.
So one of the things, if you look at this is kind of ties into the site visits that John had gotten out to last week. Looks like we're still seeing some erosion, some trash and construction materials. Looks like there's still some things to be done there. So let's see, slope along the small.
Well, the slopes and the plantings.
So you get some, some significant erosion along the southeast corner, evidence of sediment flowing towards the catch basins. So you get a few issues, so.
Is there anybody online? There's nobody in the audience. Is there anybody online for 25 Forge?
Yes, Brian Jones. with
Hey,
Allen
Brian.
Rogers. Good evening.
Brian, we can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
You better,
yeah,
yeah,
better.
better.
Okay. Yes, Brian Jones with Allen Major Associates. I'm here.
Okay. Do you know of the findings here?
I haven't seen those findings yet.
Oh, you have not. He's not seen them?
I have not.
Yeah, so here's, so we had, Beta, I think it was John Nero, but at any rate, Beta went out to take a look, did a site visit. The challenging comments or concerning comments that came back would be, the slope along the small parking area at the southeast corner of the property is significantly eroded with faint evidence of sediment flowing towards catch basins down gradient of the slope. The modified rockfill slope located at the northwest corner of the property has areas of fallen stones and sand that have migrated outside of the compost filler tubes, and this is close to the 50-foot wetland buffer. Trash and other construction materials or possibly trash from operation of the facility in some cases can be found outside of erosion controls in several locations north and northwest of the parking area. Good news is construction of the office building warehouse has been completed, and slopes along the parking area, warehouse and building appear otherwise stable, notwithstanding what we just described. Landscape plantings along the northern side of the parking area in good condition. So what we'd look to have is those three issues addressed.
I
Brian.
understand. Take care of it. and
Okay.
then come back.
Yeah, if you could do that, let us know, we'll go back out, take a look, and see if we can get this wrapped up.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we'll wait to hear back from you on that?
Yes, it may take, I'm thinking, a little while to get some grass established if there is
Okay.
that area that's not growing. So
You wanna come back?
I'll reach back to Bricolage when we're ready to appear again.
Okay.
All right.
Commissioners?
Yes.
Typically, what you've done in past for this is you waive refiling fees.
Sure.
You can waive refiling fees.
Yeah.
Up to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Brian, this is likely my last meeting. I'm going on maternity leave.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. So you can still reach out to the office, which is also why I've been very hands off. But you can reach out to the office, reach out to Tyler, and he'll coordinate getting you on an additional agenda.
Okay.
And I think we're all good about waiving the fine.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
fine with it. Yeah, no problem.
Well, I appreciate you being here, Brian, I did, to talk it through, just so we could make
Yeah,
sure we get
thank
this
you.
squared away. So thanks for coming
Yeah,
tonight.
We'll get it right.
Okay, appreciate that.
Okay, next thing on the list is.
Richard's favorite.
Richard, your project, 305 Union.
Oh, no.
Oh. Okay, what's up with 305 Union?
Just gotta move it
No
along.
change?
It's gotta renew.
Nope, so if you recall the last time that they were in front of us, they said that they filed. There was issues with access, they're working still with, DEP, so there's actually movement on it. It just takes time.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what, another 30 days?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'll take a vote to extend the enforcement order for another 30 days. Richard,
give us the motion.
Yeah, give us the motion, man.
I'll give you a motion to wit, to extend the
Yeah.
enforcement order for another 30 days to
wit.
305 Union Street.
Thank you, okay, I got a
Second that,
Second,
second that.
okay. Louis,
Vote to extend.
Vote to extend.
vote to extend.
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 And the most important one, Richard,
Extend.
extended. Okay, there you go, okay. I did read the minutes, I didn't see anything that needed changing. Did anybody else have any changes to the minutes, April 17th?
No.
All good.
Okay.
Give you motion to approve the minutes from April 17th, 2025.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Vote to approve.
Vote to approve.
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 Richard,
Approve.
approved, okay. Now we go to the discussion items. Concom training, this is a Brika thing.
Yeah, as I've said twice, I don't plan on, I don't think I'll be here at the next meeting,
Right.
for May 14th. But if I haven't given birth yet, I was gonna shadow like Jeff does when he logs in as, I don't know, Peter Dinklage and everybody
Peter
else.
Dinklage, that's right. Who was the other one?
Oh,
You had
I
two.
forgot.
You had
forgot.
two.
Yeah.
I caught the Peter Dinklage. I didn't even catch the other one.
No, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
But you did very well tonight. Very proud of all
Thank
of
you.
I really liked hearing your discourse and picking up on bylaws and things of that nature. I wanted to ask, you know, we can't talk about project specific, but you can ask me about processes. So if you did have questions about 40B process, you can ask me now.
I do have a question on that. So,
Yep.
that's in the ZBA's hands right now. Is there a deadline on them for ruling on that, or
No.
there's not? Okay.
There's no deadline for any project in front of them for ruling. They go through the same motions as any other board for any other project.
Okay. And typically you said that they'll ask us to give some input, but we don't typically proactively do that. We'll wait on their request. Is that how that process typically works?
Correct, because then it's their responsibility if they don't ask.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then again, you know, I've only been here through one other 40B.
Yeah, the grocery
Yeah.
one, yeah.
So I would suggest, Jeff or Mark, you know, you keep a ear open.
Okay.
Or come in and talk to Gus and keep tabs on where things are.
Okay.
Additionally, waivers lists typically change, just like site designs typically change. So until there's an official or official request, I wouldn't proactively write anything yet. You kind of did in the LIP process.
Right.
So.
Okay.
And to be honest, in any town, anywhere in Mass, with any commission, for any project, I mean, I think it's pretty well known that you wouldn't want to waive anything. You being any conservation commission.
Oh, I don't think we waive it, but that, right, but to the conversation tonight, that's in ZBA's hands. Our recommendation would be not waive anything.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
so.
That's kind of,
Although, I feel like when, the other one we did, there was maybe a handful of ones that we were okay with, right? And-
There were some concessions, yes, for
Right, but not many.
redundancy purposes.
right.
So, yeah, I would expect it to be similar.
I had a quick question about the 40B. So in the drainage report, it does mention the Clean Water Act. So do we enforce the Clean Water Act with the stormwater discharge, or can't we override the zoning board for that, or?
So, I can't talk about what
Oh, I just meant-
444 East Central Street is seeking a waiver
Oh, no,
for,
no.
but I can still answer your question.
Yeah.
So, no, you can't supersede the Clean Water Act. That is going back to like NIPD's permits outside that you would typically condition, that a 401 water quality cert, things of that nature, that they would have to seek from other agencies and just provide proof that they sought those out to you. So that's where you would condition, for example, that they would need to look for compliance under the Clean Water Act. But ZBA can't waive that.
Oh, that's what I was, okay.
Yeah. But again, I don't know. I mean, if they put that on their waivers list, I really hope they didn't, because that's kind of humorous to me. But no.
Okay, in general, I just
It's okay.
didn't think.
The
they could.
waivers list is only local bylaw.
Okay.
It's not federal and it's not state. Clean Water Act is federal. Yeah.
I'm sure we have it, I'm just trying to find it, the letter we sent to the ZBA on 121 Grove.
Mm-hmm.
I was just looking for that. Do you have a? I searched and all I came up with was Jamie's letter to Bruce, but.
No. I don't know where it would be in Google Drive, because I know we talked about, what was that, June 17th, 2024 was the conditions. And that lip letter was, are you talking about the one to ZBA?
Yeah, the one to ZBA.
It would be before that. I think they filed November 23, maybe. But otherwise, Tyler, if you don't mind tomorrow, perhaps going into the project folder and finding that for them, please.
What date did you say that was? Like June 2024? Is that exactly?
Well, no, it's for 121 Grove Street. The June 17th, 2024 was me just talking about what Google Drive folder for Mark for conditions. What he's looking for is the letter that Meg Hagan drafted
Right.
to ZBA in response to the waivers list.
Right. Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah, thank you.
Since that was one other one, just be good to
Yep.
have that on hand. Okay.
What else?
Just trying to think if there's anything else on that. It's been educational on the 40B, right?
Nothing for me. We good to go talk about Earth Day?
Yeah.
Earth Day? Debrief?
Yeah, I think the only thing, my only, first off, I enjoyed it. I was telling her, I thought I love that Forester. He always gives a good tour. You know, I think we gotta figure out a way to get the word out a little bit more.
So the attendance was disappointing?
Yeah, I mean, it was mostly us, which isn't, you know, a bad day.
But then, weren't there a couple of other things going on in town at the same time?
There was several.
Several.
Yeah.
There was
yeah.
something at Fairmont Fruit Farm, there was something,
At the,
the Ladybug Trail uptown, and
yeah,
there was
the
one other place,
accessible
too.
thing at the sculpture garden.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Which isn't bad. I mean, hey, it was still a good event, but, I don't know, I was just thinking about it afterwards, you know, Bricolai did that flyer, maybe we put that out on social media next time. I could do that, you know, just throw it on some of those Facebook
Yeah.
pages. I was just trying to come up with ideas to get
The really important question is, how much pizza was left over and where did it all go?
well, we did some, I gotta say, I think we did some pretty good damage on the pizza personally.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
And then the
That's
pies went
funny.
home.
Thank you for making those arrangements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though there was issues with the delivery guy, right, Bricolai? He-
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
You couldn't find the place, that's right.
Yeah, and the
And
And I
manager-
got
left, and he
manager
left.
lost
nasty
his
rammed
moments.
by the boss.
Right,
But-
God.
Appreciate the work you did, Nicole. I know you.
Yeah, that was
You
awesome.
put a bunch of time in up
Thank
front.
you.
Several kids seem to enjoy it quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
So my daughter was there. She, she enjoyed it a lot, so thanks.
She was my assistant.
She was
Got her
assistant.
junior ranger badge.
So,
That's awesome.
There you go.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
nice.
I think I was pulling out, I saw a lot of, I think it was like a Cub Scout troop or whatever, and it was just like, we were just wrapping up, and I saw a lot more kids coming, so I think that.
The
you know,
Lions, or Lion Heart, or something.
Yeah, there was a troop
Yeah.
out there, and they were
Yep.
just showing up and forming up right as we were leaving, so.
Yep.
You know, I think they would have enjoyed it for sure, and I saw like a lot more kids. I think toward the end of the day, it was getting a little
Yeah.
bit sunnier, you know, a little bit.
Maybe we even do an invite to that group
Yeah.
next year.
The troop reached out to me. They couldn't make the time for the event.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So they actually asked if they could come. They picked up a whole bag of native seeds. So they did their own
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
stewardship for
Nice.
community service hours.
Cool. And I think, I don't know, Roger, were you and I talking about the Strawberry Festival?
Yeah, you were talking about having a tent there,
I mean, I've got a tent we
Yeah.
used at the
That
farmer's
that's a
market.
great, that's a great,
Um,
yeah,
So
that's,
that-
everyone comes to the strawberry festival.
So I mean, if that's something we wanna talk about, we need to figure out.
Do we need
staff.
to like sign up for or like pay for a spot or something like that with the town? or-
I
I
don't
think-
think you need to pay, but you would want to reach out to Corey Shea.
Corey Shea?
Roger can help you with that.
Okay, Corey Shea, okay.
You wanna be in charge of the house
I'll
subcommittee?
reach
on
out to
Strawberry
her
Festival?
for the,
Okay.
it's Corey Shea in the downtown partnership.
Partnership,
So-
okay.
Yeah.
I
Do-
know
do we know
somebody
the-
on that.
You know the date off the top of your head?
Yeah.
Roger.
What?
I
It's
spent
on a
most, I gotta admit,
Friday.
I spent most of this, last year's Strawberry Festival in, Jesus, I just spaced on the Irish bar there. Walked by.
Oh, yeah, the
Um,
one right there.
Teddy Gallagher's.
Oh, Teddy Gallagher's,
Yeah.
I couldn't, my wife and I walked by
I've
and I
never
couldn't.
been in it.
Oh, man.
That's a
Is
good
it
place.
good?
Yeah.
It's good.
I love it in there.
I've never been.
June 13th, Friday.
June 13th.
All right.
Okay, I gotta go check it out.
I'm away, so, not that
I'd be
that-
tied up at the Common, so I'm out.
yeah, just something to think
I'm
about.
around, 10:13.
But I'll definitely,
Oh, maybe,
you know,
actually, no,
get you
maybe
a
I'm not
booth.
away. No, I'm not away then.
Yes.
Friday the 13th, all right.
It was Friday the 13th?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't go.
in a thunderstorm, be with
Yeah,
you.
yeah, right.
When you call, can you ask for a spot in front of Teddy Gallagher's? I'm joking, I'm
Yeah,
joking.
there you go. Yeah.
First off, I think the registration's closed, so you're gonna, a lot of those spots might be taken.
That story wouldn't end well, so we don't wanna do that.
Wait, can we have like a partnership with Teddy Gallagher?
Well, I might have a tab, or I might not, but.
Yeah.
There's one of the bartenders there invented this incredible eggnog cocktail that they serve
Really?
around Christmas. It's,
Eggnog?
oh, it's really good.
Wow,
Yeah, just so you know.
okay,
But
good
anyway,
to know.
some good local intel.
Okay.
So
All
I'll
right.
reach out to them tomorrow and I'll CC both of you.
Yeah,
on
yeah,
it,
yeah.
just
Thanks,
so we're all
Roger.
in the loop.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
All right, so then, go ahead.
So going back to the Earth Day for a minute, I would recommend that we rent a porta potty for future events. I really
Okay.
think that's too long. And I'd go even farther and say, is there any way for us to provide one, or Department of Recreation to provide one permanently, at least during the warm seasons?
At Delco?
No,
Yes.
they will not.
Why not?
One, they just won't. I've asked for that. They just won't. But two, there's also some contention, and I just want to put this in your brains as well, about typically when you have porta potties or things like that, you actually have more junk. The idea of a conservation area is track in, track out. So, and then as well, something to consider tertiary. If you want to push the issue, that's fine. I can push it for you if you would like. But where you put it and how it's going to be serviced.
Yeah, I just think it's important, especially, I feel bad for the kiddies, at the playground. That's why I mentioned
Sure.
Department of Recreation, but even for, folks that go and spend 3 hours at Delcart, it's a long time. So,
I will mention that that first parcel is not conservation. It's actually owned by DPW. So the parking lot is not a conservation area, neither is the playground. Your jurisdiction, your parcel land jurisdiction starts at the trail. I'm not disagreeing with you for events, Michael. I think that's fine because that's a one and done. You can drop it off, the night before, pick it up. It doesn't have to be routinely serviced. But if it is a partnership you're looking for, you would have to get Brutus's sign of approval.
Right.
And I can tell you right now, rec department isn't going to pay for it.
Right.
There is a substantial cost to them, and you also have the problem with people coming around and doing,
Things.
screwing with them.
well,
Yeah.
I know, but there's one like in Medway at that. I
Choate
forget-
Park, everybody brings up Choate
No,
Park.
not Choate
man.
Park. They have real
Beaver
bathrooms.
Pond. Beaver Pond has his own.
No, there's this park, is it Highland Street? Or-
Oh, yeah, going
Yeah,
between
right across from the
Village
horse
and
farm.
109.
There's a permanent porta potty, even in the winter there. And I use it sometimes, and it's always pristine.
Put them in that parking lot of the mansion across the street from the Commons, because they're there like all summer during
Yeah,
the
right.
farmers market.
Anyway,
That's just an interesting
I hear everybody, and I agree, it's not without challenges, but I think it's worth it, it's- I guess if we don't have jurisdiction, we're not gonna put it down at the trailhead right next to the pond. But, I'd be willing to pay for it out of our funds. I don't think it's that expensive, actually.
It is pretty substantial.
Because you
Yeah.
need the clean street.
And you have to have it cleaned every week.
Yeah, you have to. You have to buy it.
Every other week or whatever it is, yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
I can push it for you if you want to as a group. I have no problem doing that. And obviously the turtle habitats on that parcel, like there's plenty of things on that parcel that Conservation Commission has supported and I have pushed for. I only bring up all these other issues to let you know what you're facing.
sure. Well, I vote for it. I don't know how everybody
Well,
else
why
feels.
don't you, I think we should find out at least, what the ballpark cost would be. And I think we should find out if the answer is no, why no? What is the issue? If we're gonna cover,
Well,
if we recover the
sure,
cost,
I-
what's the issue?
Can we cover the cost though? I mean, is that?
Well, we don't know that. We
Yeah,
gotta
yeah,
find that out.
got it.
your cost for your wetlands fund has to be wetland related.
That's what I was.
Well, but if it's basically making it so you're facilitating visiting and staying at the wetlands, so the kids don't have to run off like after 30 minutes to the bathroom.
That's if that's what you would like me to write to them, that's fine.
Well,
I can do that.
I mean, the point is that you want kids to stay long enough so that they explore the rest of the area. And you don't want them basically pooping in the woods, right? I mean, let's just say this, okay? So don't put that on in the minutes, please. God. Anyway, but I mean, come on. I mean, you gotta be humane about it.
Yeah.
But really, I mean,
Well,
that's true.
who's
Basically-
gonna clean up after they tip it over every other day? The high school kids come down there and think it'd be a
It
great.
never
big-
seems to get tipped over in Medway, is my point. It's there year round.
The one up by the common got tipped over last summer.
Trust me, they do get tipped over.
Oh, that's horrible.
And it was across the street, so it really wasn't town property, but they gave the town permission to put it there, so
That stinks that somebody pushed it over, right? Just
nobody
nice.
was in it.
Yeah, I do know that DPW is not a fan, because I'd asked that, and they're not a fan of putting trash cans out on the trails
Yeah,
either.
we've already asked about that, I remember that, fight that
We
had.
have, I have had these conversations. with
Yes,
them.
yes.
And then, I mean, I do hate to say it, Richard's right. And
Oh,
if you would like to have, not I hate to say it, but like I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Richard's right. People are gonna mess with it. That's not that it's bad that you're right, Richard.
We
That's
hate-
not what
hate
I
it when
meant.
Richard's right.
Sorry. Apologies. You know, if you do want to beautify Delcart, what would you'd be better served is hiring someone to go pick up the dog crap.
Yeah.
That's what you should spend your money on.
Interesting.
That's a wetland protection issue. That's nutrients. The turtle habitat, that's wetlands. The porta potty, that's not. Again, I'll push for it, but I really don't think the finance department is going to go for that.
If I might weigh in, actually, I seem to remember Nicole saying pointing out that we have the signs at the start of the trail that has a QR code that no longer works on account of the new websites. It seems like it's linking to the old website that's no longer in
Oh,
service
man.
or something.
Good
I don't
catch.
think it's necessarily a map, but I know that there's another QR code that's on there. I was trying to have a
I'll
look
add
at
it to my list. Those are my things.
Huh.
Thank you, Nicole.
Good catch.
Oh,
Yeah.
Breaker, we'll give you 2 weeks to get that done.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe. That's right.
Maybe, yeah.
She's not controlling that either.
Yeah. Correct.
yeah.
Should we go into site visits?
Yeah, so we had a few site visits here, a couple of potential issues. So, 4 Tanglewood Drive, looks like some tree work. So I think when we were talking about this, right, Jeff, the idea was that potentially we have a letter constructed.
A letter.
Right? And so the first course of action, issue a letter, you know, educational approach, and see if we get a response. I think that's, you were gonna work with Tyler on that, right?
Tyler, I'll work with you on that.
Is that a registered letter or just a letter? I'm not sure how it gets done, that's why I asked.
I mean, if you want the soft touch, you're not gonna do registered, that's gonna look like.
Okay.
It'll look like it's getting legal, you know?
Yeah.
So, you can put a
I
nice.
typically do not send them out certified mail return
Okay.
receipt.
I was just wondering procedurally.
Yeah,
how it's
good
done.
question. So same thing.
Hello, nice citizen.
Hello, friend.
Hello, friend.
So same with bubbling, yeah, right. Same with
Salutations.
Bubbling Brook. I think you and I were talking about, Roger, I saw that as well. So we'll do a note there.
Note.
And so for Summer Street, so I think we're communicating we got that last line from John, giving them a note recommending that they submit their request for tree removal in writing, to only include work in Franklin, because I guess they're on the Rentham line there. So that'd be the resolution on that one.
Okay.
So it looks like Veterans Memorial, they're in good shape.
Good, they're good.
And John didn't see, he thinks that the correct address was 6 Rosewood, but couldn't see anything from the roadway or neighboring property, so.
Okay.
So we're gonna do a letter for Summer Street, Bubbling Brook, and Tanglewood.
Yep.
That makes sense to everybody? Is that a good process?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So
Alright.
for clarity, Jeff and Mark, the rest of the commission don't know what these site visits are. I haven't sent it
Oh,
to them typically.
actually, that's right, sorry, yeah, good
So-
catch.
Yep, so typically, right, this is just kind of taking over my day-to-day duties, so this is something that you and Jeff can decide as Concom leadership without bringing it to a meeting. You can very well bring it to a meeting. But typically what I would do, right, I would just send a letter. I would just have my administrative, authorization, and I would just send a letter noting that someone has to file an MBZA.
Okay.
If an enforcement order is needed, that's where Jeff's signature needs to be on it first. And then it gets ratified by the commission, but that's something that you two can decide together. Again, not trying to like ostracize anybody else out, but
Well, but the point
it
is
depends
that
how
we
long
don't
your
really-
meetings are, how
yeah, we
much
don't
you
really need
have.
to bother you guys about it basically unless there's, it goes to, like, I mean, we're gonna reach out, we're gonna talk to the, you know, it's a, may be a total minor thing, they'll fix it, not a big deal, who cares? Don't you have to bother everybody about it, right? So why would we do that, waste all everybody's time? So, I mean, I agree with that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, no more updates, that's it, I think we can close.
If I could just ask,
Yes.
for clarification, 862 Summer Street. So you're not saying, so the recommendation is not for them to submit requests in via like an application, it's simply request via in writing?
Yeah, writing.
Via a letter, am I understanding that?
Yeah, just a letter.
Just a letter, okay.
So-
No, it'd be an
Ty-
MBZ.
Tyler should not draft a letter.
Right, Jeff was
Jeff-
gonna, Jeff was gonna.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna
So-
send a letter basically saying, just the trees on the Franklin side.
So it,
and that'd be an MBZA, so we're recommending, right, they submitted in,
okay.
right,
Yeah.
MBZA
Yeah.
for the work in Franklin is what
Yeah.
we're.
But only.
Yes,
for-
so for the MBZA, Tyler, what you would do with the workflow is you would get direction from Jeff and Mark. Jeff and Mark are the ultimate authority, so they would say, this requires this permitting pathway, or we're comfortable with this. Beta would provide a recommendation, right? Jeff and Mark would make the ultimate decision. Tyler, what you're going to do is for the woman that wants tree removals, you're going to send her the MBZA template. Tell
Great.
her that she needs it, you know, filed by May 8th to get on the May 15th meeting,
There
or
you
May
go.
22nd to get on May 29th. For the violations, Tyler, if you wouldn't mind sending Jeff an updated letterhead document
Yeah, please,
so he can draft a letter.
please, yeah.
I actually have a template in there. I think it's called like violation or buffer zone violation or MBZA violation, something like that. You can just send that to him, again with the updated letterhead. Jeff, please draft that. You don't have to mail it. Tyler will mail it.
Okay, got it.
So 862
So-
Summer Street, sorry, come back to that one more time. Jeff is, you are drafting a letter that will send accompanied with the MBZA?
Yes,
Form.
with form, yeah,
I just wanna
exactly,
make sure.
right.
Yeah, no, good question.
You don't need to draft a letter for an MBZA. Unless
we-
you want to, you can, I mean,
No,
if you
no, I
wanna
just,
pay
I
for the
just, no,
postage.
we just want to let them know that the correct process is file an MBZA for only the work that's done in the town of Franklin.
Yeah,
Right.
I think
And
Tyler
that's-
can email
That's
that.
the important information we want to land, but yeah, I'll just put a cover letter on the MBZA form, and we'll send that to them. That's it,
Yeah, just a point of clarification,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
that's a nice way to do it, just do that.
Okay, I was just saying though, typically she emailed, Tyler can just email her a digital link. So she doesn't have a violation.
I know, I was just trying to be personable.
Okay.
So,
Okay, that's
so,
fine. If-
so Tyler, you're gonna email that resident the MBZA form and indicate in the email to just submit for work being done in the Franklin part of their property, is that the resolution?
That's standard, that's what I do.
Okay, cool.
So I'll use the
It's
word-
only when there's a violation that I send a letter.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Okay,
That's
good,
what
good.
I'm saying. They're
Good.
two
Okay.
separate processes.
Yeah, this
Good.
was,
Yeah.
this was just a request, this was not a violation, okay,
Yeah, got it, got it.
Understood,
Correct.
understood, okay, good,
Okay, good,
okay,
line of demarcation.
got it, got it.
That works.
Okay, do we have anything else, guys? I don't think so. Okay, take a motion to close.
Louis, bring us home, come on, man.
Second a motion to close.
No, you gotta give us the motion.
Motion, give us a motion.
Vote to close.
Okay, okay.
Vote closed.
Wait, I got a second. Where's the
I'll second it.
All right, second, okay.
Did I
Vote.
second it?
No, you didn't. So,
You motioned and
Just
seconded.
say close.
You seconded yourself.
Close.
Say close. For
Yeah.
God's sake,
Close,
close, close.
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 Richard, close us
I'll
out.
get coffee next time.
Bam. Okay, we're done.
He's on caffeine.
God.
No, this.
Went way too long,
Recording
you guys.
stopped.
Way too long.